sure I can read these.
You got all our reads ready to go?
Yeah.
You dried out yet from Saturday? Hey, the mustache is gone. What happened to the mustache?
Yeah, I got rid of that on Friday.
Yeah, I got rid of it.
I was tired of it. I had a yellow and red mustache. I have brown hair. It didn't look good.
Yeah, when you get the off-colored facial hair, it's not... It throws you off a little bit. I have to deal with that. I got a lot of red hair in my beard. It's strange every time I shave.
Well, I had blonde hair until I was 5. Like
Yeah.
beach blonde. My whole head was blonde.
You're blonde, baby.
And for some reason, I turned brown, but my facial hair didn't get that memo.
It followed suit. Well,
It
maybe
did,
if you
yeah.
let it grow for 5 years, it'll eventually turn dark black, or you could just dye it.
Yeah, I choose not to do that. That seems like the lesser option there. Not a big fan.
I'm going to do the dyeing facial hair thing.
I didn't really get wet.
You didn't get wet, huh?
I had the end of my sleeve on my sweatshirt at the game got wet. Other than that, ponchos win.
The poncho is an incredible invention.
Yeah, but they haven't perfected it, and it's really upsetting.
Where's the hole? Where's the gap in the technology?
Well, it's not sealed enough. You could definitely seal it even more and make sure nothing gets wet.
We talking like all the way down to the ankles up top?
Yeah.
We want like a full body length poncho. Maybe a sealer around the wrists. Your hands are going to get wet. That's just the nature of the business.
Yeah.
But a sealer around the wrist would be a little bit nice because it's like the flappy sleeves. You don't really have the tight sleeves. So I would like that kind of a suction around the wrist to take everything out of there.
Well, I had gloves on, and I had this, big, my arms could go in and out of the poncho, and so I'd put them in my sweatshirt, pocket, and man, a couple times I'm trying to clap, my hands getting caught, and I'm like, come on!
I can't make noise!
So other than that, it was, in the fourth quarter, it didn't rain. I don't know. I was curious from your vantage point.
Yeah, dried out. It looked like it dried out a little bit as the game went on.
How the rain looks on TV. I talked about this with my cousin, how we said we'll watch baseball and football games, and you can't really tell. You're like, they say it's raining. Okay, looks like it's sprinkling.
You got to do like the close-in camera shot, like of the lights. And
you need
like,
the light on it.
Oh, there's the rain. Okay, now I can see.
Because it was, man, that's about as hard a rain as I've been in a long time at a football game.
You could see it. It was raining that hard that it was very easy to tell right when they went to the game. You're like, this does not look like fun. And I want to give a hat tip to you and any other fan that actually stayed in that environment because that's miserable. I don't care what the ramifications are. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if it's the last game in the Pac-12. None of that matters. It is okay to acknowledge that sucks, and nobody wants to sit in that for 4 hours.
Not at all.
Not like just literally every person in that stadium is miserable. Even Washington fan after the game. You can celebrate for a few moments. You're still miserable deep down inside.
A lot of people are lubricated, though.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother them.
I started peeing all over the stadium. It'll happen.
That's very true.
Just let it fly.
I've come to a conclusion, and I don't want anybody to get offended by this.
Uh-oh.
I think going to games is the worst. I had another experience where Oregon State fan, for some reason, to fellow Oregon State fan was the worst person and not Husky fan. That's the second time that's happened to me in my life.
Fan-on-fan crime.
Yeah, happened to me in Eugene, and it happened to me on Saturday. Never found my seat. No usher could find my seat. I got sold tickets that don't exist, pretty sure. We looked for 30 minutes before the game.
Couldn't find them.
We ended up just choosing a row that had nobody in it. Luckily, nobody showed up at the couple seats that we were standing in front of. And then when we moved to the row we thought was it, we got yelled at because we were blocking somebody's view.
How dare you?
And proceeded to walk over because they were yelling, but I couldn't know they were yelling at me. And so my cousin's talking to him. I turn around. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, they said we're not supposed to be standing here. And like 5 of them just like, this is standing where we are, not where you are. And I show the ticket. You tell me where this is. I will go to the seat right now. You tell me where to go here.
You find this spot in the stadium.
And the guy that was yelling at me goes, I don't know where you would sit for that ticket. And I go, thank you. And he stopped yelling at me. Once he realized what I was dealing with, he stopped yelling at me.
That seems less than ideal to have tickets that you can sell that don't actually exist in the stadium. Seems like a bit of a problem.
I'm gonna be a curmudgeon for this.
We're just making up tickets now just to bring in a little more cash. Like, yeah, Rosie.
If you want to lower my fandom a peg, you definitely can, and I don't care. Like the walking, the rain, the angles that you can't see, the other games that you can't watch. I mean, getting out of there, it took an hour because Corvallis police think you got to shut down every road except 3. So let's line everybody up.
Everybody's got to go out the same way.
40,000 people just lining up to get out and go the same ways.
Turkey shoot.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty anti-go to football game guy. I'm pretty anti-sporting event. The only one I can deal with is basketball because it's inside, it's climate controlled.
Yes, it is.
And I don't feel like I miss much. If I go to a regular season Blazer game, like, so what if I miss the Lakers and the Thunder or whoever?
Yeah. It's a Tuesday night. What the hell else are you doing?
I'll see the box score and we'll move on because there's another game tomorrow. Football is different. It's not only an all-day thing. I don't know. It's just me. This is a me problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think it sucks, and I think it's a way overrated experience. I think it's way overpriced.
Yeah, it is. That's for sure.
People piss all over your stadium. People are banging shoulders in front of each other. I don't know what it is about that stadium. I'd never been in it before, the new version. We were sitting, so if you watch that guy pissing on the stadium,
yes,
there is a speaker that you look in the background right over his head. You see a speaker kind of standing up. My seats, not my seat. I didn't find my seat. We were sitting right next to that speaker, probably like a row over. And I'm telling you, I don't know if it was me. I do have kind of bad hearing from doing this job. I didn't hear one single thing the PA guy said.
You couldn't hear anything.
Because this would have sounded like from our section. The only way we knew how something was happening was when the band played or if we looked up on the video board. And that's the other thing. I know I'm ranting here, but our angle was if you were looking on your TV screen, we were to the right end zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just above that, right in front of the UW cheerleaders. And it was amazing. I'm watching Oregon State with the ball at the other end of that field, and it's a pivotal drive, and I look over, and I'm watching it. And as I'm watching it, you know what I notice? Everybody in our section, everybody, is not watching the game. They're watching the Jumbotron because they can't tell how many yards you're gaining when you run the football. And I'm like,
you have no clue.
You yahoos paid at least $180, maybe more, to come to Reser Stadium and watch TV.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of done with it. I think it sucks. That's a hot take, I know. I just think it's an overrated experience.
Here's what I would say. I largely agree with the overall take. There's just I think you and I are in lockstep. Part of it is the industry and the job that we have, that you feel left out isn't the right word, but you feel like you're missing too much when you're at a game. It's one of the reasons I don't stay. I go down and do the pregame show, and I usually get out of there because there's a lot of games that I want to get home and I want to watch. There's so much going on every single Saturday. And if you stay the entire day, it turns into a very long day, and then you're home late, and then it's, all right, when am I going to catch up on all the things that I miss? It's kind of an overwhelming feeling. I think kick time and weather are big determining factors in the enjoyment overall of a game.
Oh, TV timeouts, too.
TV timeouts are ridiculous.
Homeboy coming out with a 3.5 minute sign. Yeah, this is dumb.
That's what kills the in-game experience, I think, most is the TV timeouts and how you just have to stand there and let's honor the 1997 volleyball player. And you're like, everybody's like,
well, that was the thing. They actually honored like 4 different things. It was senior night. And like, I'm not trying to exaggerate here. Oregon State needs to get their speaker thing figured out from where I was sitting. You couldn't hear or understand anything.
I had that similar thing at Otson. I walked into the tunnel that the opposing team comes out of. There's a bathroom in that tunnel. So whenever you're down on the field, like, you got to know where the bathrooms are. And I have snuffed that one out. And I was standing in there waiting to go to the bathroom for a game. And this was like at the end of the first quarter. And they were playing the Matt Kearney Coming Home song. Mm-hmm. That's what they do at the end of the first quarter. And you could, like, it was so weird being in that tunnel and all the speakers not pointing at you. I could barely hear what was going on.
Really?
And I'm like 15 yards from being on the field.
That's crazy.
And it's like a muffled sound. And I'm like, am I going deaf right now? Is this a me problem? And then you walk 10 feet down and you're like, okay, no, it's not. But I think weather is a big factor. I think kick time is a big factor. What makes the in-game experience great, and this doesn't happen very often, is when you get to be in a shared experience of a big win. Like, those are the moments of being at big games, winning the game, you're in the stadium, you get to celebrate. Well, everybody goes crazy. I don't know if there's a field rushing, but those kind of environments, those are the games when I watch them on TV that I wish, like, oh, that would have been a fun one to be at. Just the aftermath of it. Now, the idea of getting home after that is miserable to think about and waiting in traffic, and that's horrible.
Yeah.
But the shared experience of big wins is what will always keep, I think, fans going back to the in-home experience or the in-stadium experience.
As a student, You're right. As an adult, I'm going to tell you, even if I had this job, I think I'd have the same opinion.
Yeah.
I'm just not a big football.
It's a long day, man.
I think football in person is not very entertaining.
Yeah.
I think TV is better.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion now, especially like teams where I've seen, I've been there, Oregon State. I've been to Autzen a ton of times, obviously down to Moda Center and all those sorts of things. I would rather save up and go on a road trip to a big game and at least I'm experiencing something new.
Yeah, new stadium.
For sure.
And the whole point of the thing is to go there and take everything in and the environment. And is there a cool restaurant nearby that's part of it post game?
Sure, you kind of off for the
all
weekend.
that. I would rather
Yeah.
save the money and go do that and have a different experience. And even if the game ends up being a dud or whatever, I'm experiencing something new. It's an adventure rather than I'm just trying to get down, get into the game, watch the game, get home, and get back to my stuff.
Yeah.
I also didn't think in 2023 I'd sit next to the people using the homophobic slurs the entire game.
Oh, wow.
That was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, that was.
Were you on the
Go
news
Bees.
side?
Yeah, actually, I was. New side's beautiful. They did a really good job building that thing up. It is unreal how good it looks.
How's the Beaver Street area? I bet a lot of people were hanging out in there. Is that where the dude was peeing?
Not very far.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
not very far.
Because that's kind of a covered area, right, with restaurants and stuff.
It was
Yeah.
a very packed area. You can't tell where some lines start and where they begin.
Yeah.
Or end and begin, and yeah, it was great. I thought it looked great. It looks fantastic. I was really happy that they had it, but yeah, just and then your team loses. It's the final kick in the balls. It's your seat don't exist, and the guy to your right is just going to scream homophobic things at Washington and their cheerleaders who can't hear him at all. And that's going to happen for the next 3 hours. And oh, by the way, it's going to be pouring rain.
Pouring rain, yeah.
And you're going to watch your team throw the football going, why are we throwing the football? Nobody can catch the football here. We watched them drop snaps in the pregame, and I'm like, they can't catch things in the pregame. What are we doing here in the actual game?
Maybe we should run the football.
And now I just consider it a jinx if I go. I looked up tickets to the Civil War. I'm not paying $280 to sit in a crappy seat. I refuse.
Does look like it's going to be a glorious day on Friday, though. Cold and sunny.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be nice weather-wise. I'm just not. I
just
refuse fundamentally to pay those prices.
That's a lot of money.
Dumb price.
A lot of money. And I don't think it's going to be the last one. It had that novelty of like, hey, it's going to be the last one. It's starting to feel like it's not going to be the last one.
Well,
so.
they have to come out and respond to the Washington
At this
thing.
point,
They look like idiots.
I do think the biggest thing that holds the in-game experience back is the TV. And we've argued this on the show. This has been a topic on the show for years.
It's a terrible thing
they
to do.
only care about the TV viewer. That's
do.
all that they don't care about the in-game experience. And you can see, I often stand on the sideline in Autzen where the guy with the clock is. And every time he walks out, I just want to go punch him in the face. It's like, can we continue this game? Why are we waiting for 3.5 minutes so we can what are we doing? Let's just we had a kickoff. Can we play the game?
Oh, they did that. They kicked off, ball, timeout, kickoff again or punt, timeout. Like they did that whole timeout, and you're like,
Let's
God.
make fans stand in 46 degrees and pouring down rain for 3 minutes every single time we feel like taking a break.
I think it's four. I think the TV gets 4 media timeouts per quarter.
God,
Plus, then in between the first and second and third and fourth, then there's another full media timeout.
Yes.
And they're
Injury timeouts,
3:25 or whatever it is on the little clock.
You look at that clock, it says 1:40. You're like, God, this feels like it's taking forever.
Yep.
So there's my experience.
Sounded like you had a great Saturday.
I was fine. My cousin had a good time, and it ended up being a close game. That was cool. But all those other things were happening, and I'm just like, ugh.
Hey, when your grandkids go to Oregon State, you can tell them I was at the last Pac-12 game. You can tell them that someday.
And that's like, Grandpa, it's back. What do you mean? They've aligned again.
We've realigned.
Well, we got a good show. We have a lot to get to.
Yes, we do.
We're gonna get to a lot of local things today. So what I'm gonna do at 6:15 is not the local taste. I'm gonna get to the NFL. Wild scenarios looming in the NFL. It was a great week of NFL football, man. That was the other thing. I'm like, I definitely feel this way because I'm watching on my couch yesterday. Like, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, this game to this game to this game. Hey, this one's a one-score game. This one's a one-score game.
Not stuck at Detroit. I get to watch all these games at one time. So we'll start in the NFL with some scenarios. Happy Monday here of Thanksgiving week. Dirt and Sprague. Let's get it going on the Fan.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
Idaho, come on down.
Show me a graph where it charts my price of ticket, and so it shows me like Hawaii or something if they weren't in Hawaii. It's like, okay. And then it shows Idaho, and it just dips like a stock. And then this week, we've got Boise State!
The Boise State game, by the way, right now is on the books for September 14th of next year.
Yeah.
Which is already their 4th game.
Yeah, because they're going to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, they play week 0 in Hawaii.
Yeah, August 24th.
Yeah, how about that?
What if I told you Baltimore played Pittsburgh?
Yes.
Jacksonville played Houston, Miami against Cleveland, and the Chiefs, who are the 1 seed right now. That's your AFC playoff picture. Your NFC was Detroit versus Minnesota.
How about the Roar Boys yesterday? What a comeback.
Okay, this is going to sound really gross. I laid a very uncomfortable amount of money. I've lost a lot, as you guys can tell in Sprague and Line. Had some nice wins, but I've lost a lot of money. I got about fed up. I parlayed a teaser bet, and the Lions were not the one I thought were going to make me sweat down my ass crack about winning that bet. And they were.
The entire game.
The entire game. I'm like, they're going to not only not cover, they're going to lose this game. And they probably should have.
Yes.
Talk about fired coaches. Eberflus and Staley should both be canned.
Yes, they should.
But Detroit would play Minnesota. San Francisco gets Seattle and New Orleans. I still think Tampa's going to win that division. New Orleans is going to host the Dallas Cowboys as the Eagles are the 1 seed in the NFC for now. Pretty exciting playoff situations we've got looming, and that
They're
doesn't
awesome.
even count the other teams that are kind of on the outside. Buffalo's outside looking in. Denver's won 4 straight outside looking in.
Yes, they have.
Cincinnati, well, they might be cooked
they're
now with Jake
done.
Browning. Are the Chargers done? I'm done with them.
Yes.
They should be.
Their coach is dumb.
They need to be. There needs to be no reason whatsoever the Spanos family can justify bringing Staley back.
Well, they need to get rid of their general manager, too, because I think they have a roster problem. Their offensive line is shaky. Eckler's fine, but he's not a premier back.
No, they need a second. They need another. I still think Eckler is really important, especially understanding protections in the passing game. But yes, they could use a second back to help shoulder some of the load.
Dirt, you want to know something brutal? I looked at it. Do you know who was picked after the Chargers drafted Quentin Johnston, who dropped
God.
the game-winning touchdown
God.
pass and would have covered?
Oh, God.
You know who it was?
I don't know if I want to know the answer to that question.
Back-to-back. Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, right after him. Ouch. And here's the thing. I can't really criticize it. I thought Johnston,
Yeah.
maybe he will, but I thought he'd come in, be a beast, be a stud.
He was great at TCU, man. He's a big body.
yes.
There was great highlights of him in training camp.
But
Everybody's
the
like, oh, look at this guy. He's going to
Number
fill in.
one thing about being a wide receiver in the NFL is you have to catch the ball when it hits you in the hands.
I mean, that was one of those games where Herbert's had a down year at times this year. He has played back-to-back unbelievable games in my mind. He was hitting dudes in the hands left and right. That touchdown pass that he threw late was unbelievable. The Johnson throw should have been a touchdown down the
Well,
sideline.
and Keenan Allen dropped 2.
He dropped 2 in the goal line.
And
They
that's
fumbled
very
inside the 5-yard
uncharacteristic
line.
for him. Usually, Allen's his security blanket.
On top of that, too, this is turning into like we do this with the USC defense every week. Like, hey, everybody gets right against the USC defense. Everybody sets all-time records.
Green Bay has been just a disaster on offense
Yes.
all year.
Yes. You know how many 300-yard passing games Jordan Love had in his career going into this weekend?
I'm going to say 1, and it was a fill-in spot where nobody expected him to do anything.
The answer is 0.
There you go.
And this was the first one of his career. He was
Awesome.
27 of 40 for 322, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. First 300-yard game in his career.
It's an undisciplined, bad team, man.
Defense is getting healthy, though. Don't worry. Oh, wait, no, Bosa got hurt. I mean, they suck. At this
But
point,
Staley
you have
said,
to root
quit
for it to
asking
go
me
with
the
it.
question.
Yeah.
I got it.
I'm calling the defense. I had the thought bubble. This doesn't need to turn into a Herbert thing, but I just had the thought bubble this weekend watching Mario lose and his team be undisciplined again to Louisville. His coaches in college and the NFL are Mark Helfrich, Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal, Anthony Lynn, and Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
Like, just one shot with somebody who knows what they're doing. That's all I'm asking.
The 10 a.m. window was
Nuts.
electric.
Absolutely nuts.
And I want to go back to something that we had said on the show. Usually I say we, it doesn't always mean me, but this is a team thing here, right? Dirt and Sprague are a team. There was a little poo-pooing of this slate this weekend.
There
And
was.
Sometimes when we poo-poo,
A lot of poo-poo.
the NFL says, hello, how do you do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we got that on the 10 a.m. slate.
I was cracking up because I did gamble on that Steeler game. I had the right idea. I just bet the wrong thing. The under was the bet there because both those offenses, dear God. The funniest part about the early window, though, was after those two segments last week, I was keenly interested in what was happening in the Pittsburgh and Cleveland game.
It's a good game, actually.
I mean, not really. It was close. I don't know.
Wait, what do you mean?
They had like a 90 yards combined passing, and nobody could get a first down for 75% of it.
Defense, dude. Scout defense.
I was just cracking up because I was watching most of that slate, doing some stuff around the house, got a little workout. I was doing a million different things, and I was like, I don't feel like they've shown that game in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And every time I'd have to pull it up on my phone and be like, oh, they just punted back to the other team. Okay, we're good.
I kicked the hell out of myself. I kind of like Cleveland, but I didn't want to go against you and Sprague. I should have just bet the under. I was like, nobody's going to score in this game.
Yes, Kenny Pickett's terrible. DTR is terrible.
Yeah.
It's bad stuff there.
You would have won your bet if Pittsburgh would have got their heads out of their you-know-whats, because Jaylen Warren having 9 carries
makes sense, right?
So dumb.
What did he average yard per carry wise?
Boy, 9 carries for 129. Swag, what's that register at? A per carry
9
average?
for 129, somewhere 13.5 yards per carry.
Pretty good. He had a 75-yard touchdown run right out of the gate in the second half. Let's only give it to him 9 times. That sounds like a great strategy, Matt Canada.
Tomlin said, we don't live with regret. We do things. Sometimes they don't work. Sometimes they do. You can always question things when you're unsuccessful.
God, man.
Is D'Amico Ryans the NFL Coach of the Year?
I think C.J. Stroud's the MVP, and D'Amico is Coach of the Year. C.J. threw 3 picks, and I'm still like, God, I love this guy.
Yeah, he had one of those. I mean, he's going to have games like that. He's a rookie, and he still threw for 300 yards, and they found a way to win. I mean, Arizona's not very good. I'm trying to think. If they would have won last night, I would have put Kevin O'Connell in that conversation.
He won it last year, though, didn't he?
Did O'Connell win it last? I thought Dayball did, but let me check.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it was. Oh, it was Dayball. You're right.
Would have been 2022,
and that's
right?
O'Connell was like 11-0, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they start like 11-0?
Dayball won it last year. He slightly edged out Kyle Shanahan finishing second because of the Purdy stuff, 7th-round pick, and they still had a great year.
I don't think Shanahan's ever won the award. It's like a weird thing.
Which is stupid, but hey, what are we doing here? If they would have won last night, I would have said Kevin O'Connell, and they probably should have won that game last night. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, at this point, you have to go to Houston.
Myles Garrett picked up Kenny Pickett's helmet when it rolled on the ground, and an offensive lineman was seen going, yo, yo, yo. He put his hands up like, no, please. And Garrett said, I'm not going to hit you with this.
People don't forget.
I had actually forgotten about that moment. He tried to murder a guy.
I don't think did he get suspended for that? It wasn't that long.
I think it was like a game.
Like, that's it. He almost killed a guy.
What was the quarterback's name?
Mason Rudolph.
End of a
Mason
season?
Rudolph.
I think it was at the end of the
year.
year.
It was, yeah, but he like legitimately could have connected on his head.
No,
he would have killed him.
Yeah, since we're on the train, too, of like who screwed us this weekend, I wake up every morning and I wonder to myself, who's going to be the team that just stabs me in the back? Who's it going to be? There's
I felt
one
that way.
every weekend. There's one team that just sticks the knife in and it puts it over and over again.
Who was it?
It was the Washington Commanders.
Oh, the commies
didn't
didn't
need
show
you to
up.
cover. I didn't even tease you down. I just had a parlay where I took commies money line. They're playing Danny DeVito at quarterback.
Yeah.
There's no way Danny DeVito's going to win an NFL game, right? That won't happen.
No. It's great. I love the NFL. I really do. I know college is what we talk more about, but I'm like at my house going, none of this makes sense. It never makes sense.
Never does.
You just any instincts you have, how confident you are, just go the other way, and the NFL might reward you for that behavior.
I mean, you could have a great shot at hitting a parlay, just blindfolding yourself and throwing darts at a board.
You really could.
And whatever dart the game lands on, that's what you're betting. You got a decent shot at winning that.
I know we're against it, Swag. Let me just tell this final story. And if you're on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing. I know that's not great, but Detroit, Chicago. So at this point, I have Detroit -2. I need them to cover a 2-point number against the Bears. They're going for 2. I think the game's over because I didn't know a safety was going to happen.
Right.
I'm on my couch by myself. I have my hoodie over my mouth, and I have my hands over my eyes, and I go, please, just give a 2-point conversion. And I watch through the cracks of my finger them convert a 2, and I'm like, yeah!
That was a great 2-point play call, was it not?
It was. Yeah.
Unlike in the Denver-Minnesota game, they knew what they were doing there.
All right, there we go. Some NFL. We'll get more NFL today. It's a short week. It's a weird week for us. We'll kind of line up what's going to happen through this week. But a little looking at the NFL round. Playoff picture's awesome, and some teams are outside looking in. Coming up next, some Pac-12 surprises. But first, Swag with the sports update.
This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by TG Long.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys you can put your trust in. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on the Fan, the Oregon Ducks holding at number 6 in the AP Top 25 poll after they blew out Arizona. And with a win over number 15 Oregon State Friday in Eugene, they will face now number 4 Washington in the Pac-12 title game. Ducks 14-point favorites over the Beavs in the last scheduled meeting between the two rivals. Washington and Washington State have agreed to continue their Apple Cup showdown for 5 more years. Next year's game will be at Lumen Field in Seattle, then alternating between their campuses for the following 4 years. Seahawks missing a 55-yard field goal attempt in the waning seconds at SoFi Stadium. They fall to the Rams 17-16. Now a full game behind the 49ers in the NFC West, who they will host on Thanksgiving night. Tonight it's a Super Bowl rematch. Chiefs and Eagles in Kansas City. Both teams currently holding the number 1 seeds in their respective conferences. Kickoff at 5:15 on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Chiefs currently 2.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. The depleted Blazers no match for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder. Portland suffers their 7th straight loss, 134-91 the final. OKC shooting 61% from three-point range, hitting 22 of 36, and now Portland heads to Phoenix to face the Suns tomorrow night. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
One number does it all for contests and texting.
in the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, you get teams that kind of let down when they play them. Like if you play Cal, is there any emotion to playing Cal this year?
No.
No. We're playing Cal. Okay.
Right.
Maybe they score a little bit, but we're playing Cal. We're probably going to win the game. The way he ran his mouth, he put a target on their back for every game this season.
Mm-hmm.
And every single not everybody was able to capitalize. They beat Arizona State after that. But he put a target on their back and made that game almost a Super Bowl for every opposing team because he ran his mouth after winning 2 games.
Well, his son was also showing his Rolex as a touchdown celebration.
He was.
But the thing about it to me is like when you watch a UFC or boxing match, whether you like the trash talk or don't like the trash talk from one side of it, to me, the season for Colorado is kind of the point where the guy gets knocked out in the 3rd round. Except in USC, sometimes the ref is slow to conclude that the other guy is knocked out, and so you get to go and jump on him and just keep hitting him, and you're kind of uncomfortable watching, and you're like, I don't know if this guy's being murdered right now or being knocked out more.
Keep hitting him.
It's kind of at that point where I've looked at the ref for 3 weeks going, can you just stop? Like, we know it's over. Can you stop? And so
can we go running clock at this point?
You're celebrating them getting absolutely housed in Pullman. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I picked Colorado, but whatever. They're not good.
No.
We've known this all year. We talked about it in the beginning. It was a fun story where they beat TCU. The Colorado State game was the real red flag. It was like, it's taking a miracle to beat Colorado State.
They should have lost that game.
And so, yeah, they won like another game after that, and it was against Arizona State, and that was like at the horn. It took them forever to win that game. And
sure.
So, like, I get what you're saying, but he also has a standard for himself and his team. I think people just have different approaches to it. Trash talk's not for everybody, but for him, he probably thrived off of it as a player, and so he's taking that approach as a coach.
He for sure did. Look, I will grant you the vast majority of my hatred towards Deion, it's not hatred, but my animosity towards just the Colorado storyline is not even Deion-centric. It's us. It is media-centric.
Yeah,
and the way that we had to get that shoved down our throat for the first month of the season, where the only thing seemingly that we wanted to talk about in the entire sport was, do you see Master P is going to be on the Colorado sideline this weekend? Did you see Lil Wayne is on the Colorado? Like, I don't care. This was the last season of college football as we know it, and they hijacked a month because we couldn't pay attention to anything else. Mm-hmm. And the argument that a lot of us anti-Colorado folks said was they're not that good. They're not good. Like, this is going to bear out. They're not a good team. They ended up hitting their over by a half a game. So they hit their over. Congratulations. It was a step in the right direction, but there was an insufferable nature of the media coverage that I couldn't stand. The trash talking from him on top of that I did enjoy their downfall this year.
Let me ask you quickly then. I missed it live. What happened in your estimation to the Bruins and USC game? Because like that was the shocker of scoreboard updates at Reeser was like, what? 18.
I mean, you had a team that appeared to not want anything to do with that game.
And I didn't think it would be USC.
A team that looked like they were playing for a head coach who had reports all week that he was going to get fired.
And what happened there?
It felt like that was a UCLA locker room that read those headlines all week and said, we want to keep playing for this dude, and we're going to go out and show it. And they just curb stomped him. Dude. The rushing yard numbers in that game.
Insane.
199-3. Like, that's just dominating the line of scrimmage. USC turned the ball over a ton.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams was his normal, like, incredible, but also turnover-worthy self.
I think he's checked out.
He's checked out. I think the team in the locker room is checked out. Yeah. I mean, that is a horrific season in LA.
Well, I was happy. UCLA players went out there. They played for Chip, secured their 8-4 record in the Big Ten for the next 5 years.
I mean, I don't think they're going to go.
Them.
I don't know if they're going to go 8-4 in the Big Ten.
I think 6-6 is more like
good for them. The way to fight for the Gipper.
That's right. You had Michigan and Ohio State to that schedule.
I saw somebody say, "Give them an extension." I'm like, they just did. You idiots.
No.
They just did.
Dan Mullen jumped off the top rope too. He'd sent out a tweet, said, "Are we sure the right coach in LA is on the hot seat?" Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bill Plaschke wrote an article in the LA Times, and it said, "Lincoln, your welcome is no longer. You're on the hot seat."
The guy that wrote the article in August and said they're going to go undefeated and nobody can touch them is now saying the head coach needs to be fired. How about that?
That's the trick of columnists that they don't tell you is, hey, I got to lob something up so I can dunk it either way. If USC does it, guess who called it? If they don't, you're a bum.
It's not my take that was wrong. It was you as head coach who couldn't execute my take.
Right.
Dude, it is
what
crazy.
A stupid take, by the way. They're not firing Lincoln Riley because they went 8-4, whatever the record's going to be.
No, they are not. You know who they play in the opener next year, by the way? You know who their opening game is against?
Let's see.
USC, yeah.
Who? It's got to be a good opponent the way you're teasing it.
LSU.
Is it in LSU or is it
I
neutral
believe.
site?
Let me
Dallas
check
or
it up. I
something?
believe it's a neutral site game.
It's probably New Orleans neutral site game.
So like you're at, yeah, exactly.
we had to drive down for Baton Rouge.
It's a long
Is it at
trip.
Jared's World? That seems like
It's in Vegas. This was the first one in Vegas. So that's not
LA
bad.
fans should be there then.
Yeah.
So they're adding LSU to the schedule next year, a road trip to Michigan and Penn State, and on top of that, you play Notre Dame and Oregon. Or no, they don't play Oregon, but I believe they play
they
Washington.
play Washington and UCLA.
So have fun with that. It's just crazy to think of what that's a big year. I know it's crazy to say Lincoln Riley hot seat they're not getting rid of Lincoln Riley. Of course, you're not going to fire him. I don't think they can even afford the buyout right now. Next year is massive for that guy. What if he follows this up with another 7-5?
Yeah, 7-5.
Clay Helton in his first 2 years as head coach at USC, who did not take over a great program, I believe took them to New Year's Six bowl games in each of their first 2 years.
Well, hold on here.
And he had Sam Darnold as his quarterback, and Lincoln Riley has Caleb Williams.
Sam Darnold was beloved by many in college, so let's not act like Sam Darnold in the NFL is Sam Darnold in college.
No, I'm saying they both had a good college quarterback.
Yeah.
And Caleb Williams is better than Sam Darnold.
I would also argue he's dealing with a much harder conference than Clay Helton had to deal with.
Okay, all right.
Outside of Oregon, who was...
I mean, I don't even know if Oregon was good in those years.
Exactly. You see my point?
First two
It was the year that UW went to the playoff in 2016.
Let's look.
That was the year they went to the Rose Bowl, and they beat Penn State in that Rose Bowl game.
Yeah,
that conference sucked.
They beat UW in Seattle.
Yep.
So he took over as the interim in 15. 16, they won 10 games, won the Rose Bowl. That was the year Washington went to the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And the next year they won 11 games. I think that was the Washington went to the Rose Bowl that year and lost to Ohio State, maybe. I want to say they went to the Cotton Bowl that year and lost. So he won the Rose Bowl, lost the Cotton Bowl in his first 2 years.
Didn't win the game that mattered, though, did he?
He did not win the game that mattered.
Will Lincoln in the Sun Bowl.
No, he will not.
Trojan in El Paso. Who could have seen that coming?
I'm just bummed that they lost because there was a chance if they won, they would have played Oklahoma in a bowl game. And I would have been there for that. That would have been incredible.
Mini Bedlam.
With no Caleb Williams because you know that dude ain't playing the bowl game.
All right, coming up next, a little more on the Pac-12, and we dive into Oregon State, Washington. That's next on The Fan.
Oregon.
penalty. You can't do that. You can't blatantly kick it out of the end zone to avoid a recovery by Washington.
This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by PG Long.
on 1080 The Fan.
Well, it's rivalry week here on The Fan, which means Oregon State play on Friday. 5:30 kick, 14-point spread according to the odds makers. Obviously, we'll have the coverage here on The Fan. The wonderful, the delightful Anthony Newman and other people on that pregame show. You can catch it here on The Fan.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. Wouldn't like him.
Can't coach him. Can't win with him.
By the way, I don't know if we need to call him out, but Nemec's Westland Tigers or Lions or whatever they are, they really got their asses handed to them.
Not really. They lost the close game, 12-7.
Well, that's a beatdown, man.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
5 points.
They did lose in the semifinal. He was
did.
very despondent on Saturday morning.
Was he? Is he doing
was.
okay?
He's doing all right.
Yeah. Those
They
got to be
thought-
tough to get over.
They thought that they were going to win, I think. They had that internal belief of this was our year, and it didn't happen. He was also very upset about there was some really bad calls in that game, and he had the video proof to back it up.
Imagine Anthony Newman coming at you as an official. Hey, I want to talk to you for a second. Like, oh, no.
Yeah, it was 12-7. They kicked an onside kick, and the ref said they touched the ball before 10 yards, and they didn't touch it for like 16 and a half yards.
How can you
And
miss it
Westland
like that?
recovered the ball. They would have gotten the ball back down 12-7 with like 2 minutes to go, and
Illegal touching.
they screwed that one up.
Well, we set a bet every year on this game, and I was asked yesterday what the bet was going to be, and I'm okay, this is my idea. We'll just play this out live on the air. I think each one of us, all three, I think we come up with 3 ideas. Okay, hopefully they're 3 different ideas each. There'll be 9 ideas. And we put it in a bowl, and I think we wait for the game. The loser draws something from the bowl and does it. I think I'm past the singing thing. I don't want to do the singing thing anymore.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Now, what do we do? I don't know, but I think we've got to come up with some fun, creative things that play well for the audience on the audio and plays well for the people on YouTube.
I like that idea, doing something that will give the people that they can enjoy the bet being paid off. It
Yes.
usually is not the case. Well, I mean, you can hear us sing a song. That's
Right.
a little bit different, but something that we have to do that is a little humiliating while on television or on YouTube, I think is a good bet payoff.
Now, just for the record, I will not be doing the drunken husky. Okay? And Swag's like, what's the drunken husky? Pee on a stadium. I will not be doing that, okay? I
you
will
gotta
not be
pee
doing
in studio. That's the payoff.
You just live on the
gotta-
camera. You see the stream hitting the
What the
wall.
hell's going on over there?
You know what was funny about that video?
You guys are turning this on the Huskies, huh? Is he a Husky?
Well, I guess
Clearly haven't seen this. So was this caught
You
on-
haven't seen
on
this
the-
video?
This,
Oh,
so
Swagger,
where I
go look
was
this
sitting,
up.
Swag, is a big concourse. It's undercover, so everybody's hanging out there. They have these pillars that are maybe 2 feet, 2.5 feet wide, so you could kind of stand behind one and not see on the other side of it. This guy is caught, and somebody, I kept getting tagged and tagged. Is this you? Did you do that? I'm like, first of all, you can tell it's an old guy. Second of all, this is where I expose it. It's not me. You see that stream?
It's a strong stream.
That's a hog.
Yeah.
I don't have that hog. That guy has a hog. That stream is too thick and too big for me. My stream's way smaller than that. And so, like, I knew this wasn't me, but I guess a Beaver fan, you can take some kind of device on your phone and you can cut colors out,
Okay.
and the phone can tell you what color it is.
Okay.
We've concluded the hat and the hoodie
Sure.
have purple on them.
Totally, yeah.
But here's-
100% purple.
Here's,
Absolutely. It's a
here's
Husky
where
fan.
this is
Yeah.
where my overall
Standing
point
around a
is.
bunch of Beaver fans peeing on their feet, but it's totally a Husky fan.
I mean, there were a lot of Husky fans in that area. I sat there. I would know. But here's my overall point. I find it odd that we're at a point in society where a guy is peeing in public on a building in front of everybody, and we're sitting here pointing fingers at what fan it was. How about just, he's a human and this is wrong. I don't care what fandom he was. Makes no difference to me. Why did not one person stop this guy
Hey!
from pissing all over the building?
Because you're worried with you. First off, the level of inebriation that needs to take place for you to do that in public is like you're up there.
He looks like he is
Like you're
absolutely
barely
blacked
standing
out.
up.
Yeah.
So the danger in going to say, hey, why are you peeing in public on my stadium? The fear there is that he is just instead of saying, he's going to turn at you.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden you got pee on yourself.
Yeah.
Now he's peeing on
yeah.
you. And now it's a whole different problem.
That's some clear pee too, man. He was
Look.
drinking a lot.
Inexcusable, like just nasty and gross and all of those above, descriptors. we're all lying if we didn't say a little part of you was like, we've all contemplated that. Like, we've all been close to that.
Hey.
Swigard peed on the side of a freeway, for heaven's sake.
That's
okay?
not the same as a stadium
We've
next to a bunch
all
of people, man.
had that full bladder moment where you're like, oh, God.
Sure.
And here's where I will give him at least a couple of bonus points.
He's getting bonus points. He pissed on Reeser Stadium.
You cannot get away with that on a dry September game. You just can't. It's too dry. There's no sound of water coming down. You're not going to be able to pull it off. If you are, he had the perfect situation planned out. The only downside of his planning was that there was a cell phone. If there was not a cell phone there, would anybody have noticed that that guy was peeing? If there was not video evidence of it, he would have gotten away with it scot-free. Great crime.
It's 2023. Cell phones are everywhere. And I don't know if you're trying to use the weather as like, hey, it's pouring rain. He's pissing. It's rain.
There's water coming down everywhere. It's going to get washed away. You're fine.
Where he peed is exactly in the middle of the undercover area. There is no rain at all in that area.
You can hear the rain, though. You can hear it hit the roof.
Everybody on the phone, by the way, knows he's peeing. You can hear him on the phone like, Will, what's he doing?
We've all contemplated it. We've all been there.
I have been there where I've had to pee. I pee in a bush. I pee off a highway. I don't piss in the middle of a stadium in front of everybody.
There's nothing worse than having the full bladder and being at an event and then going to like, all right, I got to go to the bathroom. And then you see the line and you're like, oh, God.
I'll run outside. I'll go to a bush.
This is not going to be good, man.
Get arrested for peeing in public.
Never seen that. That dude was just taking a leak, man. That was pretty solid.
I saw Husky and Beaver fan like, this wasn't us. This was you. This isn't us. This was you. And I'm like, how about it's just a guy pissing in public that shouldn't be pissing? Who cares? Does that change the situation?
Yeah, you could be angry at the other fan base. Come on, man.
Loaded second hour. Oregon State falls to Washington, Oregon with a huge win against Arizona State. Bo Nix increasing those Heisman odds. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague on the Fan.
live streaming video and 1080 The Fan on demand. It's time for the 127th playing of a game that no longer has a name for fear of being canceled.
I'm sorry.
This is a rivalry week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by PG Long, your Northwest flooring experts. Online at pglongllc.com.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080
Calm down.
The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2. Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan, the Odyssey app, 99.5 HD2, and of course, youtube.com/1080 The Fan. If you missed the first hour of the show, you can always catch the Service Patriots podcast at 1080thefan.com. Check out the latest special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/thefan. And you can always reach the show at the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. Your dollar goes further at Vancouver Ford. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit VancouverFord.com. I put a poll question up at Dirt and Sprague. When it comes to the football fan who peed on Reser Stadium around everyone, have we all been there before? Yes or no?
But you were liars right now.
84.2% saying no. Or at Duck Cruton, peeing on my friends when standing around? No, I've never been there before.
Yeah, just let it go. It'll warm everybody up. We're cold. It's 42 degrees. It's raining. Come on. We need something warm thrown into the mixture here.
Oregon State at Washington at Oregon State this weekend on Saturday night in the dumping rain in Corvallis, Oregon. Luckily, the fourth quarter was dry.
Yeah, finally cleared out.
But this one was it was a low-scoring affair. And when you get there at the game, you see the rain, you go, yeah, I don't know who's going to score at all. I couldn't see the football half the time they threw it in the rain.
Yeah.
I told you Anthony Gould fumbled. Nobody in the stadium really knew it because the rain on our side was so thick that all you could see was kind of a UW player scrambling and diving to the ground. But they lose. Another game within one score. They lose 22-20. They now have 3 losses on the year by a collective 8 points. And Oregon State feeling very disappointed, I think, right now. Washington continues to remain undefeated. I have a lot of takeaways from this game.
Mm-hmm.
What were yours?
Well, first off, for Washington to go in there and win in that environment, in those conditions, that was, I mean, outside of the Oregon game, obviously, because of what Oregon has become after that, that's easily their second best win of the season. A lot of that is the respect that I give to Oregon State and the program that they are. But this, again, highlights, I always love bringing this up. Like, to me, reacting to games is much more enjoyable in this industry because we all watch and we have a different takeaway and a different, key point or two. But in previewing games, nobody knows what the hell is going to happen. That's why you play the games. Nobody has any clue. All week long, we talked about how if the weather truly does get ugly, who does that benefit? There's a clear winner in that scale of who would you rather be playing in a driving rainstorm. And it's Oregon State. Nobody in their right mind last week would have said, you know what? A team that throws the ball 50 times a game, I kind of like what the weather does to their offense. Nobody would have argued that. And yet here you are looking up at halftime, and Washington not only has a lead, but they've handled the rain better. They haven't hiked the ball over a punter's head. They did have the one fumble, but they got an immediate fumble in return on the very next possession. They handled the elements and the conditions better. Now, a lot of this gets back to play calling, and I understand Oregon State criticism of that. I know even I was yelling at my television like, hey, maybe run the football in the first half. I don't really get that. But it's just a reminder that we all go in with a theory of like, oh, this is going to happen, or I feel like this is going to – nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. Washington handled the rain better, and I thought Penix, for all the great games that he has had this year, and he's had a lot of good ones, some people will try and knock this down in the Heisman standings of, well, he's 13-28, 162 yards. Like, you didn't watch the game, man. I thought he was remarkable. He was putting balls on the money. He was hitting guys in the hands, and they couldn't catch it because of the elements. Hit big throws late in that game. I thought he played a unbelievable football game on Saturday night.
Yeah, Washington, this is the one thing I had kind of noted about, you talk about previewing and how it can be dangerous to do in the sport of football. There's no doubt. The one area that I was kind of eyeing this game all year, I don't think this is a good matchup for Oregon State, the way Washington kind of thrives. The weather comes into play here this weekend. The one thing that worried me wasn't about throwing the football. It was the fact that their running game has kind of emerged here the last 4 weeks. And I know you can look at that stat line, 110 yards, a 4.4-yard average. Like, that's not overly impressive by most, especially at Oregon and at Oregon State where they thrive and run the football. But for Washington's offense, I think those are the numbers you love to see. I mean, Dylan Johnson should have had a touchdown. He almost scored that right in front of us. And you could see Oladapo coming, like, is he going to get him? He's going to get me. And
that was a hell of a play.
Johnson never saw him at the corner of his eye. Damn near busted that one for a tud, and I thought had some really timely runs. Oregon State's defense, I thought, kind of did their job here.
Yeah.
Outside of the safety, like, you gave up 20 points for the whole game.
If I tell you that going in, Washington's only going to score 22, and you're going to hold them. Well, technically, they only scored 20. Oregon State
That's what I'm saying. They gave up 20 points.
But even just say 22, and you're going to hold them scoreless in the second half. You say that on Friday, everybody's saying Oregon State's going to win this game.
I think most people would have said that, yes. But to your Penix point, and we'll get into this a little bit today, God, I know this statistically doesn't make sense. He was so awesome.
He was hitting dudes in the hands all night. I mean, he had a couple of bad throws, which is going to happen in the elements. He was hitting guys in the hands, though, early. They had that second drive. They went 3 and out, and I felt like 3 of those balls went straight through dudes' hands.
Yeah, McMillan had a pretty I thought he put it perfectly. McMillan had a drop. Balls were just going to go through hands in that game. It was way too wet. It was unbelievable they were even to throw the ball at all.
Which highlights, again, why Oregon State should have had the advantage.
And that third down he picked up to ice the game, like... That throw, you know what's impressive about him in person, Penix, is he's a little bigger than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And he has zip on the football, man. He was making throws that, like, I'm exactly at his angle. And I'm watching him throw these, and I'm like, how do you see that? And he just, like, puts it where it's either the receiver's catching it or it ain't getting caught. And I just was overly impressed with what they were, given the conditions, given the road test. This was the spiciest upset of the weekend for everybody.
Oregon State was favored in the game.
Yes, by nearly a field goal.
Yep.
And so everybody liked this game. People were picking this game. And Washington they had to play a different style of football. What I'm impressed by with Washington and Kalen DeBoer, who have now won 18 straight games, I'm impressed that they can morph when they need to. I don't know if that means they beat Washington State and Oregon, but what it means is to have a special season like this, you got to win in different ways, and they have shown, in my opinion, that they can. No offense, need the defense to win it, boom, check off the list.
Yep.
Outduel a high-powered offense at home, boom, check it off the list. Go on the road in awful conditions for the style of offense we run, boom, check it off the list. I came away with the Oregon State-Washington game just really impressed with Washington. I think they are a tough team. I think they're not getting nearly the respect they deserve in the ranking. And that just what they were able to do despite not scoring in the second half, their defense was really impressive to me too.
It really was. And you can't go all week saying I think Oregon State's going to win the game and then turn around and not give Washington credit. What they did was impressive defensively. I will say the only caveat I'll add on it is that it felt like Oregon State played into their hands a little bit. And I get why Beaver fans are frustrated because you have this season where you're 8-3. We'll see what happens on Friday in Eugene. But the 3 losses, as you point out, are a combined 8 points. And whenever you lose games in that tight of margin, there's just a play here or a play there that could have gone the other way, and maybe the outcomes of the game are different. And there was times in the first half of that game where it felt like Oregon State was not playing the style in which we all thought that they were going to play coming in, especially considering the circumstances. And there was a moment, I thought, really on the second drive of the game for Oregon State that ended up being massive. And I know the drive ended up being a safety. But both teams score on their opening drives with ease, and you're like, hey, are we going to get a shootout in the rain? This could be a fun game. There wasn't a lot of resistance on the opening drives for either defense. Washington gets the ball on their second drive, and they went incomplete, 3-and-out punt. That's a backbreaker. Like, oh, here the crowd's into it now. It's 7-7.
Oh, yeah.
You're struggling to throw the ball. Here comes the elements. All right, this is exactly how we thought the game was going to play out. Oregon State got the ball to midfield. They had a 3rd and 7. DJ had an 11-yard run to get it to the Washington 39-yard line, 1st and 10. Holding call brought the play back. I thought that call in that play was honestly the deciding moment in the game because Oregon State had that bowling ball going downhill. They were running the football. DJ was being effective with his legs. And if you go on to score on that drive, which it felt like you were going to when you initially picked up that first down, all of a sudden it's 14-7. The crowd's a little bit louder. The environment gets a little bit tougher. Now Washington is trailing and Oregon State gets the ball to start the second half. Like all these things come into the picture. And instead, you get a holding call. You then throw an incompletion on 3rd and 17, and then you hike the ball over the punter's head, and it's 9-7. And basically, the rest of the game, you're playing catch up, which then I think got Oregon State out of their offense because they had some drives after that, whether it was at the time of 9-7 or 16-7, whatever the case, that it felt like they were trying to get it all back and trying to throw their way back into the game, and I just didn't understand the play calling. And I think Oregon State fans are in the right to be extremely critical of that because they were running the football efficiently. They did it in the second half, and they just got away for it in the first half.
Let's talk a little bit more about, you're hitting on something that I want to get into coming up next, how something is a little misleading and maybe a little Heisman chatter. We got to get to the Oregon-Arizona State stuff as well. So we're back with more Oregon State-Washington next on The Fan.
Penix takes a snap, looking to throw. He's going to fire, and it's caught by Roma Dunze! Unbelievable! A fastball to the Biletnikoff candidate. Roma Dunze takes it into the 20-yard line. It's a first down for Washington. They'll take 3 knees, and they will go to the Boeing Apple Cup with an 11-0 record.
This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by PG Long.
on 1080 The Fan.
Unbelievable. Roma Dunze is unbelievable.
He is very good.
Dirt's making a face that says, I want to say something, but I'm not going to. And I know that face very well.
He's a very talented wide receiver. That's all I know.
He had like 4 possessions when they were going towards my end where Penix didn't. Penix looks to him a lot, but like he had 4 possessions where he was streaking down and like Penix just didn't even see him. Like he could have got a touchdown there.
Yeah.
So, Washington, very impressive. You mentioned something about Oregon State. And their play calling's become a big problem for people, especially after this one, because in the first half, they're running it like an 8-yard clip. This is my only pushback because I have defended Lindgren in the past, and I think Oregon State fan, it's a little more complex than just saying bad play call,
Sure,
right? There's
100%.
things that go into every play.
Yes.
I feel like they felt like they had to get out of the run a little bit because it felt like a lot of first down 1 to 2 yard runs, and now you're second and long. Washington's defense, this is why I give them credit. Washington's defense, I thought in the second half, despite being outscored as a team by 10, I thought actually put the Oregon State the offense in positions they don't want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast last week about the NFL and how Shanahan and McDaniels, their offenses are not offenses that have to come back in. They're offenses that are more built for leading and controlling leads.
Yes.
I think Oregon State's offense is the same thing in that way. I don't think they are built in any way to come back. I think they have to take a lead and control because of the running attack. And when the running attack is taken away, I'm here to also defend DJ a little bit. I thought DJ made some bad throws. I also thought the conditions were going to lend themselves for not really successful passing attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And, dude, I was watching closely. Those guys don't get separation.
No.
And again, I'm not trying to take all the blame from DJ off of here. He was 15 of 31 for 164 and 2 picks. But, like, I'm watching these receivers, and I just don't see a lot of separation. They had success with crossing routes. You can't send Anthony Gould one-on-one against Muhammad, who's bigger than him. What are you going to do there? So I think part of the reason they finished 3, maybe 4 losses this year is because they did not address a weakness in their offense. They don't have a premier wide receiver. They've got good playmakers and good athletes. They don't have a premier wide receiver. And I thought it showed itself on Saturday. And so I think Lindgren and company felt like they were pushed into a form of offense they didn't want. The second half, Washington's defense, I thought, stuffed Oregon State on a lot of early downs, and it puts you in obvious passing downs, and Oregon State's offense isn't built for that.
No, it is not, and that's why I go back to that situation in the first half being so detrimental, because you're driving to take the lead, and then you have the ability to play the game plan that you want to play the rest of the half. And instead, you get a holding call, hike the ball over the punter's head. It's a safety. Now you're playing catch up the rest of the game, and they never caught up, right? And then you eventually get the fumble, which is a gift from the football gods inside the 5-yard line. Like, how often does a guy chasing a dude down and you're seeing him try to go for the strip and it doesn't work out and he gets carried into the end zone? Like, that play doesn't often work out. But Oladapo made a great play, punched it out. You got a gift from the football gods to balance out the safety penalty if you just took points off the board from Washington. And what did you do? 2 plays into that drive, you handed it right back to them. And so there's a frustration at the end of the night because you're saying, man, we handed them 9 points. 2 of them were on a safety. The other touchdown came because we fumbled the ball on our own 15-yard line or whatever it was, and we handed them a short field, and they took advantage of it. You're spot on, though, that Oregon State is a team that needs to play from in front. They're a team that needs to be successful on first down, and when they're not, it puts them in a really tough position, especially considering the elements. I felt like every time that Washington got a stuff on a first down run play, it was almost a guarantee that Oregon State's not going anywhere on this drive. And eventually on that final drive of the game where it was unquestionably the right call to try and milk that clock, move your way down. You only needed a field goal to win the game. I love the game plan there. You started inside your 5 and almost got out to midfield.
Yeah.
On that first down of that final series in which you eventually threw it away on 4th down, the first down run was like a loss of 1 or 2 yards. And all of a sudden you're in 2nd and 12, and it's like, all right, good luck. And you're in an obvious passing situation. To add to it, DJ did not play a good game. He missed a lot of throws. The pick to open the second half was really bad, and they were fortunate that did not bite them because that was not a good throw. But to further your point, though, about it not being all on one player, he also had a lot more pressure the entire game. Michael Penix, I don't think, was touched all night.
Dude, they got to him like one time they got close to him.
When
he stepped up and threw it anyway.
Exactly. And he ended up having 3 scrambles that were incredibly effective. He had 3 carries for 22 yards, had the touchdown run, which I know was a design quarterback run, but every time he was under pressure, it felt like he found a way out of it. We knew that was going to be a thing going in. Oregon State had been creating more pressure in the past couple of weeks. That disappeared. Washington made DJ throw from kind of a muddy pocket, and we know if there's a weakness of DJ, it's that if you get him under a little bit of pressure, he's going to airmail the ball a little bit. He's going to make some rash, bad decisions, and he did at times this past weekend. The only one that I'll really criticize the series of is the Aiden Childs series. Like, that was the one. That's a 9-7 game. Your last possession ended in you hiking the ball over the punter's head, but you then get a stop, and you're like, all right, dude, we're down by 2. We're in this game. And that third drive of the game, you bring in Aiden Childs, a freshman quarterback in a monsoon, and you go short completion, sack, incompletion. Like 3 straight passes with a freshman quarterback. I get it. They're probably game planning for the run, and you thought that you could catch them off guard. That's just a really tough position to put him in.
It for sure is. I thought DJ was really good with his legs. He had that one long run where he did the spin move at midfield. I think was electric to watch live.
I don't know why they don't run him more, man. He had 6 carries for 53 yards, 9 yards a carry.
Yeah, that continues to be one of my biggest question marks of their season. Really, is their offense's inability or his inability. I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is like I don't want to get hurt. I'm playing for draft stock. I don't know if this is just by design. I don't know if it's his hesitation to want to run and take hits. Every time I felt like he ran this year, and the season's not over, but I felt like every time he's run, he has had success.
Yes.
And my cousin, who's a UW fan, he's just like, dude, when he runs, he's a big dude.
He's 6'5", 250.
He gets very when his first read is taken, I was noting this in person, like, he gets very twitchy. You know the Dak Prescott hips thing that he got caught doing a couple of years ago pregame?
He doesn't look comfortable.
DJ kind of does that with his body. He like does this weird twitchy thing back and forth, and you're like, oh, he's not reading the field. You can tell he's like struggling to see who's open because his internal clock is probably
gotta go.
And he's just like looking around. Yeah. Overall, look, you lost a crucial game. I know the points say it is, but I don't know if it's just as simple as like, well, no safety and you win. Maybe you do. You did lose by 2, but like I think their losses are not as simple as the finals indicate. I said this to my cousin. He goes, man, 3 losses by 8 points because, my God, Doc Parker was either sick or he lost his whole voice for that game. Post-game, Doc Parker was tough.
Not feeling great.
Welcome back in. Oregon State loses 22-20.
That's the worst feeling in the world. I've been there.
Yeah.
The end of the Schwab after I've gone like 15 games in 3 days. Okay, they won the title. It's over.
Like Arizona, they got a touchdown within a minute to cut it to 3. You need an onside kick. Like, yeah, that's a 3-point loss. Didn't feel like it in the moment.
No. The Wazoo game, you're down 21 going into the fourth quarter.
Let's be honest about this stuff. The final outcomes are not dictating how. It's not one play only with these games. So yeah, you have 3 losses by 8 points. I'm just overall, whether you're 8-4, 9-3, I tend to believe you're going to be 8-4 this year. I think I've come to a conclusion, and now the conference is gone. This conclusion's kind of a pointless thing to say. But had this conference not been blown up, I think the reality is this: the conference is much harder right now, and you just don't have horses to get through games where you're not perfect. Washington does. Oregon absolutely does. There are teams in this conference that just have the talent and depth you never will. And when you don't have perfect games, this can tend to happen. And so, yeah, 8-4 might be what their record is this year. Maybe it'll be 9-3, but I tend to believe it'll be 8-4. I'm not sitting here going, you know what? It's the coaches. They're all awful. I think you are the type of program, your recruiting profile, your transfer portal profile, you lend yourself as a program because of those things to where 4 to 8 plays a season can dictate 8-4 to 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
And
your year was identical last year. You just won the Stanford win.
Yes.
Without that, you feel a lot different.
Right. You caught that pass on not a Hail Mary, but basically a Hail Mary, and you won, and you got a walk-off touchdown. Like, those are moments from a season ago that you kind of forget. You just go, well, we won 10 games. They're going to probably be 8-4 this year. And I don't think it's like, whoa, let's just talk. It's not a massive drop-off in coaching and disappointment. I just think you don't have horses the way that some of these other teams in this conference do.
You don't have the ability to replace talent too when it goes as quickly as some of the other programs do. Like, that's the downfall. When you lose, like, their defense hasn't been bad this year when you look at the statistics and metrics, but they hung their hat on being an elite defense last year, and that was an elite defense. They're not, again, horrible this year, but they're not elite. They're not, they're not winning games week in and week out like they were for you a year ago.
Their pass rush had done really well their last 4 games going into this thing.
The biggest game of the year, and they were nowhere to be seen.
I mean, yeah, and I'm not going to say like, well, they're all not good. No, I mean, like, they're good, but UW is 11-0. We'll get to Oregon, and I think we need to get to this conversation, but how many programs have the resume and profile of Washington and are left out of the top 4? I just think it's a very fair thing to be talking about now.
There's no argument now. I mean, they should have already been ranked ahead of Michigan because Michigan's won 1 game all year, and they played nobody until November. The Florida State thing was a debate if you wanted to have it. That's gone now. They played North Alabama this weekend. Washington went on the road and beat a top 11 team. There's no debate that's left. They should be at least the 3rd-ranked highest team.
And Jordan Travis is
in the
out
country.
For the year.
Yeah, and I'm not going to even bake that in. I'm just going to bake in the fact that you played North Alabama. You should be punished for that in the second to last week of the season where Washington had to go on the road to Oregon State. I think your point about having to be perfect is valid. It's hard to replace some of that talent. And it's never just as easy as one play here, one play there. To the point on the safety from this game, Washington went for 2 late because of the safety.
Yes.
So if they didn't need to do that, they could have kicked a PAT and you would have only won by 1 instead of 2, et cetera. So it didn't end up necessarily deciding the outcome of the game. It just was a momentum swing that was hard to overcome.
Really weird year. DJ, I was glad we got the experience. I don't know if there's more evidence that he's gone than what happened in the post game where he refused to say what he's going to do, but he thanked the organization. And then he also participated in Senior Day festivities, which I know you noted Bo Nix did that last year. I don't know if this is the same situation. And I think they're kind of excited as a program to get the Aiden Childs thing going. So kind of a weird thing. Ultimately, though, letdown spot. Yeah, you're at home. You were hoping they could take care of it, but tough conditions. And, God, let's just give Washington some proper credit.
Yes.
On the show, they are a really damn good football team.
They are a very good team.
More football to get to next, but first, Swag with a sports update.
This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by TG Long.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Redtail Golf Center's annual store-wide holiday sale now through December 24th. Details at golfredtail.com. First on the Fan. The Oregon Ducks still the highest-ranked one-loss team in the AP Top 25 poll at number 6 after blowing out Arizona State. If they can get the victory over number 15 Oregon State Friday in Eugene, they will face now number 4 Washington in the Pac-12 title game. Ducks 14-point favorites over the Beavs in their last scheduled meeting between the two rivals. Washington and Washington State will meet in the Apple Cup this Saturday. And they announced an agreement in principle to continue that showdown for 5 more years. Next year's game would be played at Lumen Field in Seattle. Then they would alternate between their campuses for the following 4 years. Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and Eagles in Kansas City tonight. Both teams currently holding the number 1 seeds in their respective conferences. It's a 5:15 kick on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Chiefs currently 2.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. The depleted Blazers, no match for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Thunder. Portland suffers their 7th consecutive loss, 134-91 the final. OKC shooting 61% from three-point range, hitting 22 of 36. Portland now heads to Phoenix to face the Suns tomorrow night. Tonight here on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks basketball team trying to stay undefeated, hosting the Rattlers of Florida A&M. 5 o'clock tip, pregame coverage at 4:30 following primetime. Ducks 21.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Tired of getting dinged by subscriptions? We won't send you a bill. 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Happy Civil War week, everybody. Oregon went on the road to Arizona State. Let's go trust tree here. Honesty corner.
Yeah.
A 1 o'clock kick on Fox.
Yeah.
How much of this game did anybody watch?
Ooh, 0.0% of this.
0.0.
I was back in the hotel room
In Reno.
after shoot around.
Okay.
So I ended up watching the first half.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's all you needed.
All you needed
So
to see.
that was it. Can they do more? And then they got it back with like a minute to go at their own. What is that final touchdown drive?
98 yards, 97 yards, something like that.
3 or something.
Yeah, we had somebody say, hey, how about that absurd stat Swag threw out for Heisman stuff for Bo, 500 yards and 8 tuds, and he finished with 6 tuds. And
he should have had 7. They had one call back on the
Yeah.
opening drive of the third quarter. It should have been 7 touchdown passes for like 425, give or take. But Ferguson got called for an offensive PI.
which was kind of ridiculous.
It was a little ridiculous. It's exactly what Rome Odunze was doing all Saturday night, but that's neither here nor there. It was funny, I mean, because we went into this game thinking, is there any, like, what's it going to look like? Any sort of letdown? Arizona State's a horrible football team, and that just was not the case. You knew right out of the gate. Oregon scored on their first 6 possessions of the game. Arizona State did not score in the first half, and it was 42-0, and the game was over. I will say thank you. It's nice to – did you know that Oregon had never won a game in Tempe in November?
I didn't know that stat.
Never won a game in Tempe.
How many
in
games
November.
have they played in
I think
Tempe
they
in
were
November?
0-6 all time.
All right.
So you got them early in the year. Obviously, they've won games in Tempe over the years.
Well,
but
you play night games in Tempe is like Rice Eccles. It's you got to play it in day for the advantage. Otherwise, you go at night. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen.
the night
here.
crawlers are not out yet at
No.
1 o'clock in Tempe, and it actually sounded like an Oregon home game. But it was an interesting weekend because, look, there's not a lot to take away from a blowout win over ASU. ASU's not a good team, and it just nobody was surprised by that, right? 42-0 at the half. Well done. Backups basically played the entire second half. It seems like the only lingering topic around Oregon, at least until we get to a little bit of a preview of Friday's game, is the Heisman Trophy. Because Bo Nix did go 24-29, 404 yards and 6 touchdowns. He had more touchdowns than incompletions. And I want to say 3 of those incompletions came on the opening drive of the game, and then you only had like 2 the rest of the day, which was incredibly impressive. And that's an Arizona State team that only given up 30 points twice this year. But then you had Jaden Daniels later in the night have the game that he had. And then obviously Penix, who I thought played great considering the circumstances, and the stat line's going to lie to you a little bit. But do we give Bo Nix Heisman credit for doing that against ASU?
Well,
Was that enough to impress
hold
you
on.
Heisman voters?
My position, it's going to stay unchanged the rest of the year. I think the 3 that definitely should be there, and if you want to nitpick the 4th, this Marvin Harrison thing is weird to me. I don't.
Yeah, just stop it. Stop it. Odunze and Troy Franklin both have better numbers.
Yeah, but they're going to put him in there because his quarterback sucks. So
And
it's-
his name.
Yeah, and his name. Here's the thing. I'm not actually going to knock Bo Nix, and I'm also not giving him a ton of like prop up. I don't think I need to. His stats speak for themselves. He is still the favorite today. But what's funny is I cannot, in good conscience, say anything about Bo Nix when LSU was up 42-14 and proceeded to keep Jaden Daniels in to do what many people are obviously pointing out. I think Nix has this a little bit too. There's some stat padding happening here. Can we call that what it is? It's stat padding. They're playing lesser opponents, especially LSU, and every opportunity to get tutties, we're just going to give them to the Heisman front runners for our respective teams.
That has happened definitely inside the 2-yard line at times this year. Oregon just goes quarterback sneak a lot just to give him the touchdowns, and he's got a lot of rushing touchdowns in that regard.
I'm not even mad at it. I don't mean it to sound like a diss, but
No.
I think they're playing bad teams. And
The Jaden Daniels thing was a little comical this weekend because it was so obvious what they played Georgia State this weekend.
Yeah.
And they were up by 40 in the second half of that game, and
they
he
kept
played
him in there
the entire game. Like
42-14. I think he scored 2 more touchdowns after that. Why is he in the game?
They did not take him out. And there is a pushback, I think, on a narrative that is starting to come out that I will get a little defensive about. Like, if you want to tell me you don't think Bo Nix is the best quarterback in the country, like, that's fine. I have no issue with that. Penix is amazing. Daniels is amazing. Hell, I still think Caleb Williams is going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and we're just, like, not even talking about him because his team has collapsed around him. There has been this narrative, though, that has been created. One, it's like, oh, Bo Nix just throws checkdowns. Everything's at the line of scrimmage. It's like, okay, well, I like running an efficient offense with easy, completable passes. You have great athletes, get the ball to him in space. That seems to make a lot of sense. Oregon's a top 10 offense in the country. but I can't remember who it was, but one of these national talking heads had the take of, see, Jaden Daniels, look what he did. Look at the numbers. Nobody can touch this. Look at how tough his schedule was. He didn't have any help around him. If you take Jaden Daniels off LSU, that's a 4 or 5 win team. And then in the same tweet, it said, if you take Bo Nix off of Oregon, they're probably still 10-1. It's like, all right, hold on. Challenge flag.
That's where it gets dumb. That's where it gets really dumb.
You can tell me you don't think Nix is as good as Daniels or Caleb Williams, or you think Michael Penix is better. That's fine. Whatever. That's a beauty in the eye of the beholder thing. To start to discredit what he has meant to this football team is where my peacock feathers will stick out, and I'll say, like, give me a break, dude. This guy is unbelievable at the line of scrimmage. He's an incredible leader inside that locker room. He's the one that gave the passion speech when they lost to Washington about how they're going to come back, and they have been only better since that game happened. Like, he has been remarkable for this team. In Oregon, with a lot of other quarterbacks, is nowhere near sniffing an opportunity to go to a Pac-12 or college football playoff.
It's I don't disagree with any of that. I think we have talked about Bo Nix and whether I don't even have a Heisman vote. Like, if I don't vote for him, it doesn't. I've said it too many times. He should be in New York. That is the stupidest thing to say. Well, they'd be 10-1 without Bo Nix. Obviously, Bo Nix in these last 2 seasons has meant almost everything to Oregon. If you don't get Bo Nix, you get somebody else. I don't know if that somebody else is doing what Bo's doing. And then it's Ty Thompson. And I know some Duck fans have been happy with Ty Thompson in spot moments, but I don't know if they're doing this.
No, they're not doing this.
Okay, so
no chance.
My only thing, this continues to be a thing for me that I'm kind of just a little confused on, is stats and winning are basically the 2 indicators of Heisman Trophy winning.
Yes.
I just don't, I guess what I'm confused on is how the undefeated quarterback that beat the other quarterback on the other team, even though they're not really controlling each other's games.
Sure.
You have a head-to-head. You have an undefeated season.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't the most amazing he's been all year because he didn't throw for 200 yards, but he had 2 tuds, no picks. And I know he has the ASU game. I'm confused why he has been relegated to second odds behind Nix. He checks off more boxes, and his team's undefeated. Usually the undefeated story quarterback is like the thing. It just drives itself to the award. And Oregon, I think, this is my 2 cents, I think Oregon has more respect nationally, and anytime Oregon puts together 3 or 4 wins in a row, it's, oh man, look at Oregon. And Washington has survived a few of these games, but I don't feel like Washington has the same kind of respect Oregon does. And I think that speaks very highly of your program in Eugene, that they've done that for themselves with their reputation, because I don't understand it. I don't get it. His numbers are awesome, Nick's are.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Penix is a little more dependent on their strength of schedule is not to be argued with.
No.
Oregon doesn't have a top 25 win right now. And so I'm kind of confused. I've been confused for a couple weeks, and I guess I'm just going to be confused the rest of the year, even when Bo's holding the trophy up, because I just think Penix in any other year, this is the easiest layup, and the noise is about Nix more than anybody else.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this is that the Jaden Daniels stuff, his numbers are awesome. He's an unbelievable quarterback, and he's had a great year. It is a little comical when you leave a guy in up by 40 with 10 minutes to go, and he's piling up touchdowns against Georgia State. Like that, I don't know. I almost knock you down a peg a little bit in my mind that's the way you're going about doing this. It's like watching a guy purposefully miss a shot to get a triple-double to grab his own rebound. Like, I'm going to throw it off the rim. Like, all right, come on.
He's had a monster year.
He's had an unbelievable year. My only critique of Jaden Daniels is I don't think there's any other conference that exists in which a guy with 3 losses would get the same level of credit that Jaden Daniels is. And I don't think the SEC is that good this year. I think the SEC is 2 teams and 2 teams only.
Yeah.
After Alabama and Georgia, LSU's a different version of USC. They're a great offense and a horrible defense. Florida is ass. Tennessee is not good. Missouri's fine. Missouri and Arizona, like, stop it. They have 2 elite teams, and outside of that, they have nobody else. But he gets the benefit of the doubt because he plays in the SEC. If he was putting these numbers up at Arizona State and they had the same record, nobody would be talking about him as a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. I'll maintain the opinion I've had for a couple of weeks. I think the winner of the award is who, if we get the rematch, is who wins the game in Las Vegas. If it's Penix versus Nix in that game, I think whoever wins that game gets the Heisman. But I don't disagree with anything that you're saying about Penix. There's been a weird thing about Washington this year, and we're all guilty of it from time to time, of just, I don't know if it was the close Arizona State-Stanford games, of just finding ways to nitpick and critique when they continue to find ways to win ball games.
Final thing on Daniels, too, is I do think the SEC part is playing a huge factor in this. It is pretty crazy. So I'm trying to see. So this year he's thrown for 3,500 yards. He's rushed for 1,000. I was trying to comp this. So Lamar's, him and Lamar, when Lamar won the Heisman at Louisville, very comparable. Lamar had a little more rushing yards, but like passing wise, they're about the same, and they both rushed for over 1,000 yards.
Somebody did the Kyler Murray comparison too, very similar to Kyler Murray.
Yeah,
as well,
very similar to that. So I tend to agree with what you're saying about the SEC and propping a guy up. I do, and he absolutely stat padded this weekend. There's no argument there. It's just statistically, he is doing something we haven't seen since Lamar. It's unbelievable the year he's had. But your guy continues to be the favorite, man. He continues to be the odds-on favorite to win the award.
I think if they get the rematch in Vegas, whoever wins that game will get it. Time will tell on that. Let's talk about another quarterback who threw a massive curveball into the sport. How do we react to it? We'll get to that coming up next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainsplumbing.com.
SGA surveys outside to Joe. He'll launch yet again. And how about Isaiah Joe? Man, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, there's Brian Davis, Bally Sports there. Oklahoma City clobbers the Portland Trailblazers. We're not going to get to it today, dude. I want to know how much the city cares about this team, finds them watchable. That was bad.
I didn't go anywhere. Talk about sporting events you did not care about, nor did you not watch. I didn't watch a second. I checked the score because it started earlier, and I thought, nope, don't need to watch this one.
Who's stinking it up? The Trailblazers, which we knew they would be. The Three Mountains Plumbing brings plumbing and electrical services and makes them delightful. Get your time back. Let the pros tackle whatever project you need completed. Schedule an appointment online at Three Mountains Plumbing. That's threemountainsplumbing.com.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
Brock Purdy, now with his Hall of Fame left tackle, now with a full complement of weapons. They're finally healthy. That thing was unbelievable. They have so much talent everywhere. To me, they have a Pro Bowler in every unit. And that's not an opinion. Wide receiver, they do. Offensive line, they do. Running back, they do. Linebacker, they do. Safety, they do. They got Hall of Famers everywhere.
On 1080 The Fan.
A couple final thoughts on the Oregon win. I will say, like, we keep waiting for the ball to drop on college football, if you will, like for midnight to hit and one of these crazy weekends to happen. And at least at this point, it just hasn't. Like North Alabama, when that Travis injury happened, we'll get to that here in a second. They were up 13-0 in that game. And you're like, oh my God, could this be it? They won 58-13.
We saw the score, and also I had no service in Reeser. Like the minute you get into Corvallis, cell phone coverage drops.
Just disappears, yeah.
And so all I saw was the score on the ticker, and I'm like, oh man, what's happening there? And then I get home and I couldn't sleep, so I look at some box scores and Jordan Travis, broken foot. He had the old Dak Prescott happen.
Not good, Bob. That was an ugly one. Michigan struggled with Maryland. That was a spot that everybody's like, ooh, could this be a trap game? They had a big lead, let it slip away. You're like, all right, that ended up being tight. Texas,
I got to watch that one.
Texas was in a dogfight all night with Iowa State. They pulled away at the end and ended up winning by 10. So we continue to like, hey, at some point this has to settle itself, right? At some point these teams have to lose. That just hasn't been the case, man. We only got one more week in the regular season, and then it's conference championship week. Obviously, like Michigan and Ohio State are going to play, and Alabama and Georgia are going to play. But I'll repeat kind of what I said on Friday. As dumb as it sounds, like style points matter at this point. Eking out wins if your Oregon is a one-loss team is going to hurt your resume when you have Texas and Alabama that people are eagerly waiting as one-loss teams to say, I want to move them ahead of the Ducks. Alabama's probably not going to get that benefit because they play Chattanooga this week. Texas might. They played on the road at Iowa State. I don't know. But that you had to go out and win that game emphatically, and that's 42-0 is about as emphatic as you could be at halftime.
And look, you can classify this as reactionary ridiculousness, and you'd be right to do that. My takeaway, too, in talking about some of the stuff with my cousin on the way home, I've been wrong before, and so I would love to be wrong here. I'm kind of afraid what could happen in Eugene this week. There's a real vibe. You know, DJ doing the whole, like, goodbye thing without saying goodbye. And he's like, yeah, I could play my brother. I've never done that before. Like, let's see where this Oregon State team is. I think they'll show up, but, like, Oregon doesn't have a top 25 win anymore. Utah's out.
Thanks, Arizona. You really screwed us there.
Who saw Arizona as the third best team in the Pac-12 this year? Not me.
Watch them beat Oregon State and Oregon State fall out of the top 25, and that'll still be used against them.
Well, but
Washington gets credit for the number 11 win in the country.
Yeah, well, if Oregon State falls out, that's not a rank win for Washington anymore. I think some of this stuff does matter, and if Oregon can get up early big, I think the foot's on the pedal. Because, oh, by the way, you think Dan Lanning was happy about losing that game last year? You don't think he thought about 19 straight runs? You don't think that motivated him to continue to build the program from 1 year to the second already and had all this defensive line talent? Like, if they can do it, they're going to do it because it sends a message. And they're well aware of that. It's like the Colorado game. Like, this is a win for me in three different facets.
Yeah.
We win. I beat a team everybody's talking about. And, oh, by the way, the recruiting trail. I'm a little worried. I'm taking Oregon State in the points because of our show bet. If I was actually a gambling man in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'd probably be betting the Ducks in this one.
Yeah, there's the aspect, too, where one of the few criticisms you can make about his tenure is that he hasn't beaten a rival yet.
No, this is a big one.
0-3.
Yeah.
0-3 against Washington and Oregon State, so he needs it. 0-4 would be a disaster, and to lose this game at home, I imagine Arizona's going to beat Arizona State. A loss this weekend would knock them out of the Pac-12 title game. You would get Arizona and Washington rematch, which would be hilarious, just like we all predicted at the start of the year.
Oregon State has the opportunity to do something legendary for their program, but what's funny is you and I talked about during the break is, I don't know, disappointed or let down. I don't know where most Beaver fans are. I can't try to classify it, but if they're in that category, one of those, what's funny is they had exact same record going into this game.
Yes, they did.
A year ago.
And they did not have a pathway to the Pac-12 title game, if I remember correctly, last year either.
No, but they won it. They played at home, so they won it. They're on the road. Statistically, they're just half the team that they are normally. So they're going on the road, and they're trying to do something they can't really do. Mm-hmm. And if they lose it, I don't think the reaction needs to be like fire people and this. Like, it was the same thing. It just ended on a more positive note. You beat Oregon, and you won your bowl game against a team that had completely quit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you won 10 games last year. It was a great story. I don't think losing this year means the story needs to be done or completely altered and changed. Coming into the same game, same record. Like, you kind of did the same things. I think, if anything, there's more of a story of, the quarterback difference wasn't as big as we thought it would be. He's better, but, like, it's not like it's made that big of an impact, and your wide receiver talent You didn't upgrade it, and you needed to. You needed to this year.
Yeah, that's the tough part with the quarterback transfer stuff, man, because you never know, right? Like we always think because X, Y, and Z worked, that means they're all going to work and they're all going to be an elite upgrade. It just isn't always the case. There's a lot of guys in the portal that don't end up panning out to that level. Not that DJ's been bad. The numbers for a large chunk of the year have been pretty decent. Like the numbers are better than what you had a year ago, but we kind of said it on Friday. Like if you're going to pull off an upset, whether it be this weekend against Washington or this coming Friday against Oregon, like he has to play at a high level to win these kind of games. You're not going to be able to get away with the comeback like you had against Oregon very often. That's the outlier kind of game where you just run the ball. Yeah. The other team makes special teams blunders. They don't pick up a fourth down. Like all of the things went right late in that game. Usually in order to win these games, you need elite quarterback play, and they did not have it Saturday, and we'll see if they have it on Friday.
5-3 in conference post your 3-0 start. Yep. I just ask yourself this. How many conference games did you walk away from Oregon State saying, I felt like the quarterback won the game for them today?
Yeah. Not a lot. Not a lot. We got a lot to get to in the final hour of the show. We got some poll questions we need to answer. I didn't get to my quarterback question there and how it's going to impact the team going forward. So we'll get to that in the final hour. The Apple Cup is sticking around. They announced a deal over the weekend. We'll discuss that, some NFL thoughts. It is a loaded final hour. Don't go anywhere. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan. in there. Just shove it down your gullet.
I've finally reached the point in my life where I don't eat too much food.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm pretty happy about it, too. Like, I know what I'm saying is going to contradict itself right here, but, like, we needed to eat something. We got to town a little late.
Yeah.
So I stopped in my local McDeezy's.
I mean, how do you not? It's always easy. It's
Listen
a simple go-to.
Listen to a woman who had her child with her out loud just talking about how the government's ruining her life and
Hey, man,
she should be allowed
sister.
full custody of her children despite her drinking whiskey at 1 a.m. Just one of those loud talkers. It's like, you know how dumb you are as a person. Like, can you stop talking about it out loud? But usually in those moments, I'll order like 4 sandwiches. I'll be like, hey, let's get for the 2 for $2, you know?
Yeah.
One little cheeseburger. That's
The only place I usually do that fast food wise is there's something about Taco Bell that I have a really hard time ordering the right amount of food.
Because it's really good.
Every other fast food place, I'm like, I know what I want. Like, give me a double cheeseburger and a fry, and I'm good to go. Like, that's all I don't order 13 cheeseburgers, but there's something about going through the Taco Bell drive-thru, and you're like, I want to, give me that.
I usually get like 7 items, it felt like, when I go to Taco Bell.
And then you eat 4 of them, and you're like, I'm not eating leftover Taco Bell. This is not good. Why did I order all this food? It doesn't make any sense.
Although, if you do have leftover TB and you are wanting to eat it the next day, just air fry it.
Okay, that's the secret.
Put it in the air fry for about
fry?
2-3 minutes. You know, monitor it obviously at 350. But
Sure.
yeah, nice little warm up. It actually makes it as close to fresh as you can get.
Okay. Well, I have a college football question that has lingered from the last 24 hours that I would love to ask you two fine gentlemen. But before we do that, though, there was something big that happened. I mentioned in the last segment, we're kind of waiting for these dominoes to fall. We didn't get a team that lost, but we got a guy that went down, and that was brutal, man. Jordan Travis is having a great year. Florida State won again. Granted, they played North Alabama, but they're now 11-0 going into their in-state rivalry game against Florida. 11-0, 2 wins away from an undefeated perfect season.
Yeah.
And their starting quarterback is out. Now, this started before the game even kicked off on College Game Day, which was live for some stupid reason at James Madison, who couldn't even win their game this weekend. It was said by Desmond Howard and Kirk Herbstreit. Both of them said on College Game Day.
I boycotted the show. What did you? What did I miss?
I didn't watch it either. I just saw the tweets. I saw the tweets of the takes, and I reacted to the takes of the tweets. They said that a one-loss Texas or a one-loss Alabama would both have a valid argument to jump in the college football playoff rankings and undefeated Florida State.
Wow.
And I just thought,
we're not playing by the same rules anymore.
We're just doing that now.
Yeah,
okay, so all right, because the Big 12 is really tough this year, I guess. Let's just give Texas credit for, beating Kansas. Okay. I don't know. That pissed me off. And then Jordan Travis goes down, and that then leads to the narrative of everybody saying, well, you can't put him in the playoff now. And as somebody who experienced their team lose a national championship to a team who should not have been in the playoff, according to these people, and a third-string quarterback, I would say, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah. What else do you want to talk about? Like, that's kind of pointless. Why entertain that? If somebody told you that on the road, like if you walked out of the building and walked to your car and some guy just goes, hey, we should put a one-loss Alabama jumping Florida State if they go undefeated and win the conference title, you wouldn't entertain the conversation.
No, but I also wouldn't rule out the committee doing that, which is the scary thing.
I will.
Okay.
You do that and you will have mass panic and chaos going on.
Yeah.
I don't know how Florida State fan wouldn't be marching to the doors. Where do they do this? In Dallas, Texas.
I don't know where they pick.
Wherever they do their picks. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't have the fan base storming those facilities. That is ridiculous. I think Florida State's going to lose in the ACC title game now.
Sure. They might lose this weekend. You never know. They play Florida this week. They were feisty against Missouri. They probably should have won that game.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
I wanted Missouri to lose.
They had a 4th and 17 with the game on the line, and Missouri converted it and kicked a game-winning field goal.
Yeah. Florida's got bigger problems. That's just a ridiculous take.
That is
Those people are paid millions of dollars to be on that show and know more about that sport than everybody watching.
Yep.
That is one of the dumber takes I've ever heard.
Yep, I agree. And we saw a team with a third-string quarterback win a national championship. It happened against my team, and they beat Alabama in the playoff as well. So I love that we immediately rushed to that. I'm like, well, I don't want to see them in the playoff. Like, well, they win their next 2 games. You cannot kick them out.
Yes.
You cannot do it. I don't think the ACC is very good this year. Do I think Florida State is better than all these other teams at the top? Like, probably not.
No, their resume's weak.
Resume's not great, especially now with the injury. I get all that, but this has to be decided not by opinion, but by the results on the field. Like, I have fun with the Oregon-Washington stuff of, Oregon, if they get there, they're going to beat them. Oh, look at the spread. It's an 8-point spread. Like, for now, you don't have an argument, man. Washington beat you. They are undefeated. Like, we can all have the opinion that we think Oregon's a better team. Maybe they are. Maybe that will get settled in 2 weeks. It's an opinion. What we have to base these things off of is what happens on the field. Florida State, if they go undefeated, will get a shot, should get a shot at the college football playoff, whether Jordan Travis is healthy or not, and he will not be playing. His college career is done.
Yeah.
That was a horrific injury. If you didn't see it, don't go watch it because it's the leg going
It's the Dak Prescott injury.
It's just bad.
His foot was up. He knew it, and he just was, like, pissed off.
But if they got stiff challenges the next 2 weeks. Louisville's not great, but they keep finding a way to win. They're a one-loss team. They're going to get them in the ACC title game no matter what happens this weekend. And they get Florida this weekend, and it's on the road in a night game in the Swamp.
Could be,
so
yeah.
We'll see what happens. But if they win those 2 games, they deserve a shot.
Well, what's interesting is Florida State, because I'm with you. Like, I've been saying about Washington, going undefeated, like, there's something to being able to do that is difficult in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to stack resumes, go tell me who Florida State's, it's LSU.
LSU's their best win.
Their second best win is maybe Miami or Northwestern.
I would say at this point, with the way Clemson's playing, it's probably Clemson.
Okay, we're splitting hairs over the 4th or 5th place team in the ACC. The only argument is if Florida State loses.
Yes, then I have no problem with it.
You bump them out. But, man, if they go undefeated, they're going to get rewarded for it. But their schedule's not very difficult.
And now there was a theory thrown out yesterday. This was a circulating thing. Even Adam Rittenberg quote tweeted it, and it kind of echoed the sentiment. And that is that if Washington is to win this weekend, let me go find the tweet. I believe it came from our good friend Nick Daschle at the Oregonian. And it was basically that if Washington goes 12-0,
yeah.
Why are we playing a conference championship game?
Because we've made that game. It exists. I mean, it's not a game that's just made up every year for funskis. That's like actual scheduled game every year.
The tweet was, if Washington beats Washington State, it is the deserved conference champion. They went through a gauntlet. Nobody thought they could survive consecutive games against USC, Utah, and Oregon State, and they won them all.
Yeah. I mean, you have the regular season crown is yours for sure. I do feel a little odd. I'm not with that opinion at all. I mean, the game exists. Like, what are we doing here? What I do agree with is the idea of, like, the perception. I know we're the Oregon station and we're here in Portland. I feel the whole narrative with Washington and their season's odd.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Florida State just immediately started ahead of them was weird to me. Florida State doesn't have close the win that Washington does with Oregon. You mentioned that slate of games. Oregon also went through a slate of games that was difficult, or at least we thought it would be. And then they played them and they got through it. And it was like, USC was not what we thought they would be.
They're very similar schedules. The only difference at this point is that Washington played Arizona, and they have already played Oregon State, and Oregon has not played Oregon State.
Yeah, Washington has the Oregon State win, the Arizona win under the belt, a respected Utah win, even though it's not a top 25 team, and the Oregon win. So, like, those are important to have. I do find the narratives odd. I feel like since that game, because the Huskies played instantly a bad game with ASU, it's just been Oregon's better. And Oregon has done a lot of things to show and maybe make you feel like they're better. But they did play, and Oregon lost. Let's see what the rematch is in the Pac-12 title game.
Got to get there first.
But what's funny, I mean, you said the Heisman could be on the line in that game. I think that's ridiculous. We have 12 games of evidence of who is the best player in college football. And also, it's kind of funny and sad for Washington if they lose that rematch because they both went 12-1.
Mm-hmm.
The difference was Oregon won the game that mattered more to people.
Yes, the game
Washington's
that counted for more.
Yeah, they won at the right time. And if you reverse them, Duck fan ain't happy about that either.
You're livid, absolutely livid.
That's the only thing I agree with. The whole take of, like, don't play the title game, that's a ridiculously dumb take. The game's been scheduled. It's been on the schedule for years.
Yeah.
We've had a Pac-12 title game every year for how long? 5-6 years, whatever it was.
We've had a Pac-12 title game now for...
No, it goes back to the beginning of the conference.
2011, yeah.
It's ridiculous take. Just say Washington's really good.
They're both really good. Washington's had an unbelievable season. Nobody's ever gone 9-0 in conference play in the Pac-12 era. We brought that up a million times. It looks like Washington has a great shot to be the only team to ever do it in the final year of the conference. The part that I will agree with, and this is where, like, even the stuff from the Florida State angle on game day, like, well, Alabama or Texas should jump them if they go undefeated. Like, just stop it first off. But it just is a reminder of how dumb this sport is. Like, we've been kind of waiting for one of these years in the playoffs because usually every year we yell and scream, and why is this team here? Why is this team here? And then you look up at the end of the season, and there's like maybe 5 teams that have an argument to make it. But in almost every single year of the playoff, there has not been anything controversial. The first year is one of the few outliers.
That's the one.
You had the TCU Baylor versus the Ohio State third-string quarterback thing, but then Ohio State won by 70 in the Big Ten title game, and the Big 12 didn't have a title game, and you're like, well,
Shout out
right.
Gary Anderson on that one.
And thank you, Gary Anderson. And they put Ohio State in, and Ohio State went on to win the national title. Basically, every other year, there has not been a debate. This year, you're going to have it could be fascinating, man. If Alabama beats Georgia, what does that do to both of them? If Texas wins out and there's only a one-loss team with the win in Tuscaloosa and non-conference, let's play the hypothetical that Oregon does win out. Then you have a 12-1 Oregon and a 12-1 Washington. Florida State could win out with their backup quarterback. You could have an undefeated team there. A Michigan or Ohio State with only one loss, who's the loser of that game with an undefeated winner. Like, dude, we are headed for a year in which you're looking at 7 or 8 teams that have a legitimate argument of, like, we deserve a shot at this, and you're going to have to choose 4 of them. Good luck doing that. But it's just a reminder of, like, we need an expanded playoff. If Oregon is to beat Washington, if they get there, Washington deserves a shot to compete for a national championship.
Oh, they're going to be eliminated the quickest, I think.
They
of all
will,
those
which is
teams.
ridiculously stupid because they would have just gone through a 12-0 season against what I would argue is, if not the best, the second best conference in America. But they're going to get shortchanged because they're the Pac-12, and this is the way it works on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And of all the years that we have needed an expanded playoff, again, maybe Texas loses this weekend at Texas Tech. Maybe Washington State wins the Apple Cup. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, and we get the craziness, and it's all eventually just settled, and it's not a debate. But we're heading for a playoff where there's 7 or 8 deserving teams, and you got to pick 4 of them, and it's just dumb that all of them don't get a chance.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I agree with that completely. And if Washington loses and you play out all these scenarios, I mean, it's not going to make sense in my brain at all. It's going to be a little frustrating to me as a Pac-12 honk.
The same thing happened at TCU last year. They went 12-0 in the regular season. They lost the Big 12 title game. They made the college football playoff.
Well, that's because they didn't have this problem.
No.
They didn't have the amount of teams that are this kind of level and controversial, but like the quickness in which the committee and everybody else will just eliminate Washington out of consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already 5th now. That's ridiculous to me.
It is. They should be 3rd. We'll see what the rankings look like when they come out on Tuesday night. All right, I want to get back into NFL. I got a couple more thoughts on local college football because we got a poll question, some announcements over the weekend. Do we want to see that in the state of Oregon? We got a lot of football still to get to on a Football Reaction Monday. That is next on The Fan. conference championship games. I will say, when the playoff expands, I think this is probably the easiest game to eliminate, is it not? Like, Pate brought it up on a show last night. I thought it was an interesting point. So the Big Ten currently does divisions. Next year, they're going away from that. If they did not have divisions this year, and it was just the two best teams, you would get Michigan, Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah.
Michigan, Ohio State would play again next weekend in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game, which would be hilarious if you had the same situation where, like, Michigan wins, then Ohio State wins. It's like, well, what are we doing here? And then you would have a really good shot as a, high-seeded conference champion versus an at-large that you could get the game 3 times in a month. So, like, I get, if you want to tell me in an expanded playoff, like, hey, best regular season team wins your conference, let's just go to the playoff, eliminate a game, I'm okay with that.
Right.
And the 4-team playoff format, I don't think you can make that argument because there's too many games that you got to play and everybody else is playing one. It screwed the Big 12 out of it in that first year in 2014. But this will be interesting to follow when the playoff expands. Is this game worth it? Is it necessary? Or do we just say, hey, like in this year, Washington would be the conference champion, because they would be 12-0 with a win over Oregon, and Oregon would get an at-large bid as an 11-1 team.
Well, but in the scenario where Oregon rectifies the loss, you don't want to lose that opportunity. I also think the scenario that you or Pate are laying out here is not as probable as it appears. I don't think Michigan, Ohio State are getting through the conference of a joke that the Big Ten is now that they've added these 4 teams. And they've done away with divisions. So, yeah, could you hypothetically have a scenario, I guess, where Michigan, Ohio State play 3 times in a row? I'm almost willing to bet money you won't.
Okay.
What do you think the odds are for or against that? Because I would say they're against it.
The playoff one would be the outlier one, but I love where Oregon's heading. I don't know if they're going to jump right in and play in the Big Ten title game. I certainly don't think Penn State's ready to take that next step. I don't think USC's ready to compete in the Big Ten. I know UCLA can't. And Washington has to prove that they can replace basically their entire roster because they're losing a ton of guys to the NFL next year. Mm-hmm. So I'm not putting it outside the thought of like they could be the 2 best teams in the Big Ten again.
Yeah, but
next
they're
year.
not going to play 3 times in a row. I mean, it's a fun thing to kind of use for talking point of conference title game versus expanded playoff, but like it's not realistic.
Sure. I think the argument would be 12-team playoff. You're going to have a guaranteed spot plus some at-larges. Is the game necessary? I think is the question with an expanded playoff.
The conference title game?
The conference championship game. Is it a necessary game?
I mean, I think it is because it has to eliminate teams. Like if Oregon, if the expanded playoff was this year, Oregon's what, 6th, right?
They're currently 6th. Yeah.
I don't know, man. If they were to lose to Washington again, do they fall out of that playoff format? There's a really good chance that they do, depending on what happens in some of these other ones. So
maybe they would. I don't know.
If you have the automatic qualifier, and then you got maybe Oregon would probably get the benefit of the doubt and be just within that top 11. But like, there's also a shot that they would be eliminated. Do we want to eliminate the chance of that? I don't know. I don't think that they will. It's a easy money grab. And if Oregon plays Washington in Vegas, Duck fans going to parade on Twitter and in real life and like, go Ducks, see? And Washington fans not going to be able to respond, but mentally they're going to be like, this is ridiculous. We beat you guys already. It was a 1-1 split. But we went 12-0, and because of that, we get kind of punished for it. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you need to get rid of it by any stretch because I don't think that scenario is very real.
Okay. A couple of thoughts on the NFL weekend. I wanted to get to something that came out over the weekend next. But the Seahawks lost a game this weekend that ended up being kind of a trendy pick for a lot of folks going into it. The Rams got a lot of attention, Stafford being back. Now, Cooper Kupp ended up getting hurt again. He was out of this game mostly in the second half. Geno Smith got hurt in this game.
Also had one of the weakest offensive PIs I've ever seen in my entire life in the first half.
He really did.
Didn't even touch the defender, caught the pass, and then threw the flag. What are you doing?
I mean, this was one, though, that just Drew Lock came in and was awful late in that game. Geno Smith wasn't doing a lot more. They built a lead and then just tried to kind of hold on to a 16-7 lead and then gave up 10 unanswered in the fourth. That one's going to sting when you look back on it. That was a bad loss.
What I'm confused off is the last possession. When Myers misses the field goal, like they ran a play after completing that pass to DK.
Yeah.
Why didn't we not spike?
That is a great question.
Because they ran the ball. So they kill like another 13 seconds almost. Yeah. And then you trot out I don't know. I just thought it was weird clock management.
Yeah, they were at the 37-yard line, and they ran it for 2 yards. And you basically, in that stretch, from picking up the pass to Metcalf to running the ball, you went from 41 seconds down to the spike with 7 seconds, and then
it's ridiculous.
From the 37 or 35, whatever it was.
I don't think they're a very good team, but probably making the playoffs. I don't know. They're kind of the Steelers to me. My eyes are telling me this isn't that good of a football team. But then they'll win like the Commander game, or the Steelers win a week ago, not this weekend, but a week ago, and you're just like, this isn't making sense to my eyes.
The thing that they have going for them, and this is kind of what we felt like coming into the year, is the back half of the NFC is not good.
No, it's not.
You have top-heavy teams with, I think the 49ers are legit, the Eagles are legit, Detroit, nice comeback win. Like Dallas, let's win a game that counts. Nice of you to beat up on Carolina. After that, you're competing. Here are the teams you're competing with for a wild card spot. Minnesota with the pass or not.
Yeah.
New Orleans, Green Bay, the Rams. Like that, you only have 2 other teams that are even at or above 500.
Falcons.
Like that's who you're competing with. So that's what they have going for them. Dude, big test on Thursday night. On Thursday night, they're the nightcap Thanksgiving game hosting the 49ers. And I can't wait for that game.
Is that one in Seattle?
It's in Seattle.
Yeah,
in Seattle on a Thanksgiving night. They got the triple header, and they like to do that rivalry game as the last one.
Yeah.
Where you have the Lions and Cowboys that always play, and now you try and do a divisional rivalry game. I can't wait to watch that game Thursday.
No, I think it'll help a lot. I did want to read this very quickly before we go.
Yeah.
This NFL stat. This is according to Daniel Popper.
Okay.
You know who Daniel Popper is?
I do know who Daniel Popper is.
He's basically leading the charge against Brandon Staley still being the Charger coach. I just want to read this very quickly. This is via The Athletic. 6 times this season, the Chargers allowed a conversion on 3rd and 15 or longer, 3 of which have come on defensive back penalties. The Chargers have allowed a 50% conversion rate on 3rd and 15 or longer this season. No other team has allowed more than 3 such conversions, and other team is above 30%.
So bad.
Including the penalties, the Chargers have allowed 27.5% conversion rate on 3rd and 11 or longer since he took over as coach and defensive play caller in 2021. It's the highest rate in the league, according to True Media.
Don't worry, though. He's going to keep calling the plays. We trust our process. We're doing things the right way.
He's doing the screaming at people in a way that knows that he knows he's getting fired.
It just makes
what I mean?
Makes you look so douchey when you're yelling at taking your anger out on the media, as if the media is the problem. Your defense is ass, dude. That's the issue.
He was such a nice, analytically driven guy a year ago, and we've drove him to the cliff of like, I'm going to start yelling and screaming at the beat writers now.
Oh, God. So there you go. I wanted to get to that note. Seattle with a really rough loss yesterday, and the Jets finally benched Zach Wilson.
Yeah, but they won't commit to continuing to bench him.
Dude, that is malpractice to continue to play him. I know it's not all on him. Their offensive line isn't great, but like, dear God, dude, what are we doing? Okay, I want to get to something that was announced over the weekend. Are we playing a game of Follow the Leader? We'll get to that coming up next. First, your Swag with Sports Center.
This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by PG Long.
On 1080 The Fan. This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by PG Long.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on The Fan. With the newest AP Top 25 college football poll, the Ducks remain the highest-ranked one-loss team at number 6. They will take on number 15 Oregon State Friday in Eugene. And a victory there gets them a date with now number 4 Washington in the Pac-12 title game. Ducks 14-point favorites over the Beavers in the last scheduled meeting between those two rivals. Meanwhile, Washington and Washington State have agreed to continue their Apple Cup showdown for 5 more years. Next year's game will be at Lumen Field in Seattle, home of the Seahawks. Then they'll alternate between their campuses for the following 4 seasons. Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and Eagles tonight in Kansas City to wrap up Week 11 of the NFL slate. Both teams right now in the number 1 slots for their respective conferences. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KTU Channel 2. Chiefs currently 2.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. College hoops this evening on The Fan. The Oregon Ducks trying to stay undefeated on the young season, taking on the Florida A&M Rattlers in Tallahassee. 5 o'clock tip. Pre-game coverage at 4:30 following primetime Ducks 21.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swangard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Every day, get the NFL headlines delivered straight to you. Follow the Best Football Show with Brian Baldinger on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sponsored by ChumbaCasino.com. With over 100 online casino-style games, Chumba Casino is your destination for nonstop entertainment. No purchase necessary. VGW Group.
is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by PG Long.
on 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Happy Monday morning to you. Happy Thanksgiving week. Happy Civil War week, everybody. Pat chiming in on the YouTube live chat.
Yeah.
Pat says, Dirt, you're outmanned. 2 beavers. I can be there in 30 minutes to escort you out of the building supporting my duck gear. Need to care for our own kind. We do. I am outnumbered day in and day out on this show.
Yes,
Usually being surrounded by 2 beavers is a good thing. Not in this case. Not this week.
You're a quack. Where do you think Beaver fan is?
I'm a quack.
Where do you think Beaver fan is for this game this week? Because I think that loss, it just kind of
Yeah, there was a lot of arguments last week about controlling your own destiny, and somehow Oregon State, I was going back and forth with one of our P1s last week about how Oregon State would have tiebreakers, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, one of our P1s told me too, and I had confused the Arizona tiebreaker with...
So it was basically Oregon State, if Oregon State, Arizona, and Oregon had all ended with 2 losses, Oregon State got the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
How? I don't know, but the way I was like, oh, whatever, I'm not going to look that far into it, because hopefully it will settle itself on the field. And Oregon won't lose a game.
It would have been the Washington game.
Yeah,
because Oregon lost to Washington, and so did Arizona. That would have been the tiebreaker.
Yeah, you start going down the
Yeah.
standings and whose record against the highest.
Even though I think in that scenario, so Oregon would have lost to.
I mean, we don't need to get into it. We don't need to spend time on it.
Or no, because Oregon didn't play Arizona.
We didn't play Arizona. Yeah,
so you can't. There's no
you can't do a
head-to-head
head-to-head
there.
comparison.
So you
But
go
Oregon plays Oregon
to.
State.
They do this week.
Yeah.
They go to. Okay, what was your record against the
next common
highest
opponent? It
ranked
was Washington
team?
Yeah. It was weird.
We don't need to debate that because
It won't matter now.
The consideration will be if Oregon loses this weekend and Arizona wins, Arizona's in. If Oregon wins, they don't need any help. They are in the conference championship game and we'll get the rematch. Next couple of weeks are going to be very stressful. If Oregon wins on Friday, back-to-back 8 weeks are not easy to handle. But nonetheless, here we are. It was announced over the weekend. It's kind of been building, right? We knew there was a good chance this could happen. Our buddy Ian Furness reported it a couple of weeks ago that there were serious conversations about the Apple Cup continuing past this year. Well, we're in Apple Cup week. Washington is a massive favorite at home, and they announced it. The 2 schools announced it this weekend. So it's a 5-year agreement to continue playing the game. Basically, the bonus that Washington is getting is a quote-unquote neutral site game next year, which is in Seattle, which I love. But you're going to sell 50-50 tickets, so it will be more of a split crowd than playing at a Husky Stadium. But next year it will happen. What's their stadium now? The Seahawks? Lumen Field. It'll be at Lumen Field. Yeah. And then the next 4 years, you're going to rotate home and homes, 2 games in Pullman, 2 games in Seattle at Husky Stadium. And this then led to everybody, this has been bubbling under the scenes for a while, that Oregon and Oregon State are going to try and do it. I threw out a poll question last night because I don't know. I have a hard time with this. I feel like there's a vocal crowd that is on social media, and it's, I don't want to play the game. Or some Oregon fans will even do it. We don't care. It's like, shut up. Yeah, you do. You care about whether you play Oregon State or not. And Oregon State will go, we don't want to play the game. They're traitorous. We don't want to ever play them again. It's like, okay, I don't really know if you have that choice. You kind of need the money. So I was just curious where people are at. And pretty overwhelmingly, I put up a poll question with 4 options, 2 for Duck fans, 2 for Beaver fans.
Yeah.
You're basically looking at 74% of people are saying, yes, I would like to continue playing the Civil War. We're in Civil War week, and it feels like we're heading in that direction.
I thought the stunner of the Washington State thing wasn't that it continued. I just assumed it'd all be in Seattle or Montlake. I commend Washington State a lot. I can't believe the Huskies gave into that.
I think I wonder if it's a lawsuit pressure thing of like, dude, we want to be on your good side. You control the purse strings. We'll come to Pullman. Now give us our full allotment of 2024 money because they need the money in Seattle.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to make or break Washington State wanting to keep said money given their conference uncertainty going forward. I just was surprised because if you're looking at it from a business perspective or just from the kind of the way the sport is modeled, there's not really a whole big incentive for Washington to go to Pullman, Washington now. You're in the Big Ten. That is hard enough. Their schedule next year is difficult. And you could say the same thing about Oregon, which is what I said at the start of all this stuff was like, I don't know if they're going to get this game. And if they do, I'd be surprised if they were played in Corvallis. It's very little brother of our state to be behind Washington and announcing and doing this.
Very.
I don't know what we're hanging up on here, if it's just simply like Boise State's refusing or I don't know what it is. They need to get it announced, and they need to get it announced now. I still not sure I'm ready to say Oregon is willingly going to go to Corvallis. My only thought on Washington and Oregon willing to go to these in-state rivalries and go on the road is that both of those programs internally are kind of telling themselves, where's Oregon State going to be in 2 years? Probably more a Mountain West team than Big Ten team. Where is Washington State going to be in 2 years? Probably a Mountain West more so than. So it's like at that point, they might be banking on the talent being even bigger a gap. And so going on the road is not as big a concern as it maybe is or was last year or would be this year or whatever. That's my only thought, because I don't, from just a football model, I don't understand why they felt like they needed to go to Pullman.
Sure.
Given their circumstance where the two programs are at. But I hope Oregon and Oregon State get a similar agreement. Obviously, we don't have a Lumen Field.
No.
So next year be in Corvallis by traditional measure.
Yeah.
And the year after that, Eugene. If they could do that, be awesome.
Yeah, Oregon would be basically swapping a home game with Boise State for a road game in Corvallis in September. That would be the flip-flop that you would have.
I got to imagine that's the only reason is just paperwork legalities. They can't announce it until they know they can stick it on the schedule.
Did Washington State do this? Did they have to get out of one of their games or no?
So Washington did not, because I believe next year they were scheduled originally to play the second half of their Michigan State home and home.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a conference game now.
Wait, the second half.
So they played Michigan State this year.
Michigan State.
And I think
they was in Seattle last year.
Oh, touche. So that wasn't it. They had
might
a
be
game.
the Michigan game.
Might have been the Michigan game.
Michigan
Touche,
canceled
okay.
or pushed or delayed it back.
Well, and obviously now you can't because it's a conference
they had a
game.
natural opening.
Yeah, they play each other next
They
year.
did not have a game. Their other non-conference schedule, by the way, next year was Weber State and Eastern Michigan.
So they needed something
They
to
needed
kinda,
something
to
there.
boost it. Yeah.
And so they're going to get Washington State in Lumen Field. I've seen a lot of people point to the business tie-in aspect of it, of not like, so it's the Boeing
Yeah,
Apple
they
Cup.
have sponsors for that whole thing. Boeing's a title sponsor. They have other stuff. And that was one thing I originally mentioned. We had this conversation back when all this stuff started going out, is maybe it's an opportunity for Oregon and Oregon State to go rebrand this thing and find some sponsors and both sides make some money out of it. Obviously, it's more important for Oregon State than Oregon. They're not hurting for dough. But if they look at it as an opportunity to reinvent it and rebrand it, then maybe it strengthens it. The worst thing part of it is there's not a Lumen Field. You don't have something. Ideally, if you played that the first game of the season in Portland at a big giant, 60,000 seat stadium up here, then it would totally be something and you could make it special again. But yeah, the whole thing hinges on how agreeable is Oregon to how many times you're going to play in Corvallis.
I've over the years of doing this job, I've the last couple of years, I'd say I've completely disconnected Twitter with reality. Yeah. In a lot of ways. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, this is interesting to bring up on the show as a topic because you see it on Twitter. But like when you talk about the Duck fan, like I absolutely think there are some Duck fans that this run for the last 15, 20 years has absolutely clouded them to the point of cockiness and, oh, little brother, we don't need you. I think there are far more yous and other Duck fans in the state, just from my experience of going to this game, where it's like, it is fun. There are some bragging rights, but like overall, it's been tradition for a lot of households. There's divided houses. There's diehard Beav, diehard Duck fans that have memories of, oh yeah, in 1998, this game meant a lot for Oregon State and Oregon. Like it's not as long as it seems. And I think those vocal minority people that are cocky, sniffing fan, they're better than everybody. I think those are the ones that are allowed on Twitter. And I don't think it's representative of the reality of like, this would still be a fun game. In September, it'd be a little weird, but like it would be a fun game to have on the schedule. And the expanded playoff, you can make a real argument like you can afford if Oregon State could win that game, you can make a real argument not only is it good for their resume, but like Oregon wouldn't be detrimental to their whole season, as we've seen from their Husky loss, responded just fine from that.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see them come to an agreement on this. I think it would make a lot of sense. Oregon State needs the money in the game. And I think Oregon, no matter how Beaver fan feels that they left to the Big Ten, Oregon could do some goodwill by coming to an agreement of sorts if you get a home and home.
I mean, it helped Oregon State immensely because you would have a game every year that is going to be against a Power 5 school that you don't have to go schedule. We don't know what their future conference alignment looks like and who they're going to be playing. Like, there's no question. Oregon State needs the game more than Oregon. It doesn't change the fact that I don't want to lose the game, man. This is a game I've watched every year for my entire life.
Yeah, for sure.
I have friends who are Beavers. I have family members who are Beavers. I am in group chats. Like, I do a show with two Beavers. Like, I don't want to lose this.
You do a show with a Beaver and a Puget Sound grad.
I just, like, I don't know, this pushback against, like, we don't want to play the game from both sides. I get it. Emotions are running hot. Maybe it takes a year or two to figure it out because you can't get the buyout with Boise State. The idea of this being the last time that Oregon and Oregon State plays is something that I don't even really want to try and wrap my head around. I want this game. And whether it's in September and week 1, you don't do it in one stadium. If I'm Oregon State, I'm not signing onto an agreement to go to Autzen every year. Like, that's not the case. You have to get a home and home. And I'm okay with that. Going to Corvallis every other year to play the rivalry game, it would give them something impactful that they could look forward to on their schedule. It would help them sell season tickets. I'm all for that, and I don't want to lose the rivalry.
I would be interested to see if they could advertise for it and
go get a sponsor.
Would we finally get a name or a trophy or something? Now that they're not in the same conference, I kind of think you need that. I was watching Iowa this year.
Spice it up a little bit.
Iowa and Minnesota, I feel like played 4 games this year that they won a trophy in. They're holding. Minnesota and Iowa was an actual rivalry I wasn't aware of, and Minnesota hadn't won in Iowa since the 90s, and they were holding a trophy up. And I'm like, I didn't know this was a thing.
Minnesota and Michigan play for a trophy, too.
I had no idea.
The old Oaken Bucket.
Do a billboard battle where the loser has to put a billboard that says we're the little brother or something. I don't know, but can we get something incorporated with the game now?
The loser has to buy a full-page ad in the newspaper congratulating the other team on winning the game. What do we think about that, huh? It is Civil War week. I'll answer the poll questions coming up next because we've got a lot of them out there and a great Monday Night Football game. Wrap it up next on The Fan.
This is Rivalry Week with Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by PG Long.
on 1080 The Fan.
All right, happy Civil War week, everybody. We got a turn and burn here in the last segment. As always, we're out of time.
Yeah.
And we don't, this is it. So, here are the poll questions.
You made it sound like we're not going to be here ever again.
This is it.
That's it.
This is the final show.
That's it.
We're getting fired today. No, I just have more thoughts. I'm not done yet. I want to keep going. Other than the fact I kind of have to poop. Other than that, I want to keep going.
I mean, I kind of do too, but, we made it clear to corporate the 4-hour thing, and that's a corporate decision, so.
The 2023-2024 Trailblazers season has been about what I expected or harder than I expected. 75% of you answering about what I expected.
I think you guys are lying to yourselves.
Yeah, we can get to that tomorrow. I will tell you, I have never
You
made...
want to talk about that tomorrow?
I mean, we can get to it. We can noodle on it a little bit. I have never felt better about a personal decision that I have made than completely unplugging from that organization.
Maybe that's why they answered about what I expected.
Yeah.
They're not watching, so
Like
it's
that.
like, what do I care?
I mean, I knew this was going to be an ass team, and guess what? They suck. Sure, they're a little banged up, but, stop it. They're terrible. When it comes to the football fan who peed on Reser Stadium around everyone, have we all been there before? 78% of you were liars.
We had one person tell a story and then end it with, maybe I just wanted to tell you this story.
Oregon is a 14-point favorite in the Civil War. What outcome do you think? 42% of you early on saying Oregon in a close game.
Wow, okay.
39% say a blowout.
All right.
71% of you would vote for Bo Nix right now to win the Heisman. You're damn right you would. He's the best. We get a great Monday Night Football game tonight to wrap up the week. Chiefs and Eagles in a Super Bowl rematch. Are we ready for the Kelsey and Taylor Swift crap for 4 quarters?
No, but I need the Chiefs to win by a field goal or more because I had an 0 for 2 Sprague line in heartbreaking fashion. So
I'm riding with you on this one. I like KC tonight at home.
It's hard to bet against Mahomes at home, you know?
Less than a field goal.
Yeah, their defense is good. Philly's defense is a little less than.
Yeah, I'm with you. There you go. Good little show. If you missed it, go check the Service Patriots podcast, 1080thefan.com, at Dirt and Sprague and at 1080 The Fan. It's going to be a busy turn and burn week, man. We got shows tomorrow, show on Wednesday. Obviously, we'll be here Friday. No show on Thursday. So a lot to cram into the next 4 shows. Thank you so much. Hope you join us the rest of the week. Don't forget, you can always check the show on YouTube, whether it's live or after the show is all done. Thanks for being a part of our Monday. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Colin is next. Listening to 1080 The Fan.
I'm just a quick with BetQL. We got the best Monday Night Football